Hey, Angel.
Yeah.
Why don't you start your show?
Alrighty. Well, thanks to that delay. Thanks to yours truly.
I need some.
Yeah.
Do you have any music to open up your show with?
Yeah, that's what I'm about to switch over to. I was just, getting on my own self here.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
He was vamping. All right.
Yeah.
Open it up.
It feels good to see the world getting loose. Feels good to see the world getting loose. I don't know about you, Sack Noel. I don't know about you, Phenom. I don't know about you, White Shadow. I don't know about you, but I feel good. I don't know about you, but I feel good. I don't know about you, but I feel good. I don't know about you, but I feel good. I don't know about you, but I feel good. I'm 2+2, I'm for sure. You down, I'm down, baby, let's go. You stop, you drop, baby, then roll. You twerk, you pop, booty so swole. I'd hate me too if I were you. And when it comes to billions, I'll take two. It's only one life, you don't get two. So live life, don't let it live you.
I got a pocket full of $100 bills. Put on a jacket, cause these diamonds give you chills. 2 shots I'm running, 2 out I'm stunning tonight. Yeah. Look in the mirror, I'm like, who the hell is he? So many whips and cribs, I'm losing track of keys. Ooh, up to something. Ooh, yeah, I love it, alright. Alright.
Yeah, I'm drinking out the bottle. Get loose, hanging with supermodels. Get loose, feel like I hit the lotto. I don't know about you, but I feel good. I don't know about you, but I feel good. I don't know about you, but I feel good. I don't know about you, but I feel good. I don't know about you, but I feel.
Well, welcome. As soon as it switches over, welcome everyone to Wednesday evening. Yes, it is hump day here. What is it? January 17th, 2024. Wow, the hottie toddy. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait. Give me a second. It's coming. It's coming. Before I even do the show intro, do we already got the hottie toddy going?
No, got little whey protein and
No.
hottie toddy a little later.
It's not the way you normally say it. How do you say the protein?
Whey.
There you go. So now I can restart the show. Yes, it is Martinez Company by Rich Quinones, Angel Martinez here. Martinez and Company. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. As you guys just heard, Tony and Miss Robin go off air there with their final guests as they were really coming up on it. They were going through the menu. Hopefully they will have themselves a delightful dinner. And it's glad to see and glad to hear that they are back on air for a third day to make sure they are nice and healthy and just having fun. And the sun actually came out all over the place here in Florida after we've been indulged in rain, but it's coming back tomorrow. And the only thing is that tonight it's going to get colder than usual. Then we'll warm back up, but not as much. Then the weekends is going to be cold, but next week is a big bonus one. So with that being said, what? Did I say something wrong? I'm sorry. Is it Atlantic City, New Jersey freezing?
It's 13 degrees here, man.
Oh, well, the time and temperature here in Tampa, Florida, as soon as I can bring it up.
Your audience, you need to know your audience a little better. Read the room, will you?
Well, listen, it's 53 degrees here, 6:04 on the East Coast. Therefore, on the left coast here in Tampa. But who's counting? All I know is that's going to be the high over the weekend. But next week, it's going to get nice and toasty. So, yeah. Anyways, thank you all once again for tuning in here to the Tony Bruno Sports Network. The phone numbers and phone line and text lines are open at 844-644-TONY, 844-644-8669. Also, later on this evening, we are going to have BigSarge from BigSarge Sports. He covers the Houston Rockets, the Houston Astros, and also your Houston Texans. It used to be, and I believe he's still on Sports Talk 790 in Houston, but I know when Andy Kalu went off air, he used to appear from time to time. So we'll get to find out if BigSarge is still out there on Sports Talk Radio out in Houston, Texas. But thank him for taking some time away from Texas camp to come on with us. He'll be later on in the show. So thanks to BigSarge for coming on once again this evening. Of course, we're taking your comments here live on the Tony Bruno Sports Network, not only on the phone, of course, on the social medias, so you guys can see us. And I already see that Donald Harrison is saying hello. Hello, Don. We appreciate you tuning in. And to Mike Klein, oh no, we sucks again. Happy offseason. Fly, Eagles, fly. Yeah, well, Mike Klein, the president, CEO, the all to wherewithal affiliate of South. It's a shame because it was a great party out there at Tampa Joe's, but unfortunately, the Eagles didn't make it as much of a party. And speaking of, as I also put out there on the promo, apparently Jason Kelce is saying not retired after basically saying he was retired. So he went on his brother's show, him and his brother, saying that not so fast. But there is a lot of rumors and, of course, speculations that are already happening. Brandon Graham said that he's going to come back for one more year. It'll be his final season. So it looks like the Eagles are going to honor his final season for that. And that's good news. But it makes you wonder why all of a sudden the turnaround, Rich, where Kelce says, I'm not going to do it.
First of all, I mean, everyone in their rush to be first, right, with social media and these NFL insiders, right, whether it's Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, who, by the way, is a pending free agent on NFL Network, so you might see some changes there. But there's no way that after 15, 16 plus years, winning a Super Bowl, All-Pro, great center, Hall of Fame center, arguably maybe the best center in Eagles history, it's debatable, whatever, great guy, carried himself, the right way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just because he's emotional and maybe there was thought about retiring, you can't really go and run and say the guy's retiring, right? I mean, ultimately what happens in these situations that it's a prisoner of the moment, it's fresh, the wound, the cut is real fresh and it's real. And a lot of times players at this stage of their career will take a couple weeks off, get mentally ready. I've asked this question 1,000 times to athletes over the years, especially ones that I would speculate or thought maybe they were towards the twilight of their career, Angel. And I always ask them, how do they know? And they said, a lot of times you kind of know ahead of time. And then you take a step back, you talk to your family, your friends, everyone, the organizations, and you figure out what's going to be best for you going forward and them. But the key is they always tell me to paraphrase. It's either, the mind says we want to keep going and the body doesn't, and there can't be a compromise. So it could be a situation where maybe he comes back for another year, plays at a high level, but doesn't practice as much, right? I mean, it's so fresh. So when you see a guy emotional like that, probably part of him thinks this is the end. And there's that other part where the Eagles brass will call him up and say, hey, give it another year, man, run it back, with the Fletcher Coxes and the Lane Johnsons and the Brandon Grahams and those guys. So I that's why when I posted, I put out on Twitter and Facebook, if it was his last game, if being the appropriate word, because a lot of times you'll see these guys maybe make that decision and then in a month the body feels good, he's ready to go, he feels reborn and rejuvenated and he's going to give it another go. So Eagles will do everything in their power to see if he can come back for another season, but he'll make the best decision for himself, right? I mean, the guy represented the franchise, the city, A-class, man, A-class. I mean, as a Giant fan, I would love for him to retire so we can get rid of that tush push. But he was a hell of a player, man. So I'm sure he'll talk about it with his family and see what's best for him.
Well, Tampa Bay did a pretty good job as far as starting to, stopping the tush push. Yeah.
And but by the way, one time, because of the head coach's arrogance, to go for 2.
Correct.
Which was not necessary.
Correct.
Right?
Yep. But then it makes you wonder too, though, Rich, obviously Travis is thinking about, he's contemplating whether he wants to retire as well. Obviously his body is not up to par anymore. And, granted, maybe that T-Swift thing that's going on, there's more rumors and speculation, as always, that maybe she wants to settle down. Maybe she actually wants to get married. Maybe she wants to have kids. I mean, the marriage part I can believe. The kid part, it's kind of tough when you're in your prime of your concert career. I mean, I just don't see it because you got Beyonce, for example, she decided, well, I'm going to have my kids, take a step back, blah, blah, blah. And once you start, you don't want a nanny to constantly be the one to take care of your children. You want to be there as much as you possibly can. But when you live that kind of lifestyle, you don't have much of a choice. So I'm wondering if both of them will kind of get together. Obviously, Kelce's already started. One Kelce started his offseason. The other one hasn't yet as he plays this weekend. But I wonder if they both will really, really think about it as they get together with their families over the during the break, during the offseason, and say, all right, brother, what do you plan on doing? I'm coming back for one more year. But I think the other Kelce decides, you know what? That's it. That's it for me. My body aches too much.
Listen, there was talk that Travis, there were some rumblings prior to the season that Travis Kelce, this was going to be his last year. And a lot of people were connecting the dots, serious relationship. Is it, fake or not? Is it legit? Is it genuine? Is it real? I mean, Taylor Swift's worth $1.1 billion. So I don't really think she needs to worry about touring anymore. But to your point, it's that lifestyle and just the allure of being in front of, millions of people, audiences, and putting on concerts, right? Being in that spotlight. It was a down year for Travis Kelce, no doubt. But, Kansas City's going to need him when they play Buffalo. I still think he can be, top 3-4 tight end in the league. But a lot of times, as I alluded to, your body tells you one thing and your mind tells you something else, right? Every fighter thinks they have one more fight, one more round, one more flurry in them. And then sometimes you wake up and you get old, right? Who's undefeated? Father Time's undefeated. So if anything, those guys keep doing their podcasts. They'll have a TV show. They'll be like the Manning brothers. But it could be, when you think about it, it could be the end of an era. I mean, think about this team, right? In that locker room, Lane Johnson, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Kelce. It's an old team in certain positions, man. And a lot of times it's, what have you done for me lately in the NFL? You have to make raw, not favorite decisions, if that makes sense. Sometimes we have to just do what's right for the organization. We might not want to bring you back. We might want to bring you back on the cheap. Sorry, you've been with us for 10, 15 years. But we got to go younger, stronger, faster. So that's why everyone says it. Guests we've had on, you and I have talked about it. You look at one isolated season and you know that the team is not going to be the same exact team the following season because there's changes that have to be made. Today, right? Clean out day in the NFL, clean out day for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman sat down with Nick Sirianni. Love to have been a fly on the wall and say, hey, man, lay it out for us. What's your game plan here? Because if they heard or hear something they don't like.
Yep. Again, I'm not sold. I'm not sold by any means of what. There's got to be stuff that I'm pretty sure it's going to be said, maybe a rewording of the contract of saying, I don't know, if X doesn't happen, then see you later. There's something there has to be something big to come out of it other than just patting him on the back of the shoulder and saying, it's okay, buddy. We'll get him next year.
You're talking about Sirianni?
Yeah.
Oh, they're not going to do that. Think about an exit interview, which is always weird, right? Why do you get an exit interview if you're going to another job? What the hell do you care? I'm not going to be working here anymore. But anyway, we're not saying that's the case with Sirianni. What I'm saying is Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie will sit down with him. And again, hey, the first question I would ask is, what went wrong? Right? How did we get here?
Right.
And Sirianni is going to have to explain himself and, in a lesser extent and a softer interrogation, if you will, and come up with answers. And again, I believe if his plan is not, if it doesn't jive with the vision that Howie and Jeffrey Lurie have going forward, then it's not going to be the right fit. And then you'll start to hear the leaks and the cracks, or it might be a couple playoff runs. We'll chalk it up. You went to the Super Bowl last year, a couple plays away from winning it. The narrative would have been different. You would have been a Super Bowl winning coach, and you got a little leadway. Those are the only two scenarios I see playing out. Either they're all on the same path, they're on the same page.
Right.
What he's saying, what he's selling, they're buying. If not, then you'll start to hear, hey, there's talk that they might want to go in a different direction. And here's the thing, you can't really sit on it too, because you've got all these great head coaching candidates out there, whether it's Pete Carroll, Harbaugh, Belichick, Grable. And if they get plucked, then all of a sudden you're almost stuck with this guy for another season or two.
Yep. All right. We had a couple of comments, a couple of text messages coming in. First one coming in from Pete Shepard about 7 minutes ago. It says, have a great show, guys. Sounding great. Thank you, Pete. Pete, as always. Hey, listen, once again, does it all by himself from 7 to 10 a.m. How he does it beyond me, but he's got always a great set of guests every single day. Coming from, let me see who this is before I read said message, because it comes from 727. I don't believe it's AJ, but I got to go back because unfortunately sometimes there's not names that go along with it. All right. Well, can't get the name, but from the 727, Kelce is a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is, that's pretty much not arguable there. I agree at that point. Then coming back here to the social media comments, first one off is Joey B says, Kelce's will make 5 times more than he did as players, podcast endorsements, etc. Jason Kelce would be great on TV. Just my opinion. I agree, because they would make a ton more money doing what they're doing right now. Mickey, what's going on? Thank you. Joey B says, are you guys surprised the Cowboys haven't let McCarthy go yet? Yeah, you know what? I'm so far semi-stunned that it hasn't happened, but I guess maybe they're waiting to see what's going to happen with Belichick, unless Jerry Jones met Belichick somewhere out there in New Orleans and maybe has some gumbo, because you know that Belichick has never, ever, as long as the 24 years he was in New England, he never treated a player to a steak dinner, a fancy dinner, a 5-star restaurant. It was basically like a McDonald's, Burger King. But what do you like? What do you prefer?
I'm not a fast food guy.
Well, no, I'm saying that's what he would say to his players. Yeah, that's what he'd say to his players. So he wasn't, because the one player I heard, I think he bought a 2 or 3 hot dogs, or whatever it was, and like a Coke. I'm like,
oh, nice.
And first when I heard it, I thought it was just far stuff, but no, that's the way he did it. He never did the fancy stuff. Obviously, when they won the Super Bowl, it was a whole different story because he didn't pay for it. But that's, because he just wanted straight business. So unless Jerry Jones had some sort of meeting or knows something that the rest of us don't know, then that might be the reason why McCarthy's not gone yet.
Yeah, there's a couple of reports coming out of Dallas that he's meeting with Jerry Jones and brass later in the week, probably tomorrow and or Friday, as a de facto interview. I think it's more or less state your case why you should have the job. State your case why you should remain head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I think that's exactly what I think it was Dallas Morning News. They were reporting that as well. So yeah, that is a state your case, probably why we should not go in a different direction. Right. And, again, you got names out there, man. You got Carroll, you got Grable, you got Harbaugh, you got very good young offensive coordinators. Ron Rivera, great guy, not the best head coach. His name's floating around. He said he'd love to come back and coach maybe as a defensive coordinator. So these are all things you got to take in consideration, because if I start firing people and then hiring guys, I know for a fact they're going to want to bring in their own guys, their own coaching staff. And these guys may be poached. They're plucked from, different tree branches, and maybe that ruins the plan, so to speak. Right. All these Dallas Cowboys, Tennessee, all these vacancies, potentially the Philadelphia Eagles, unless you have the coaching in place, Angel, if you don't have a strong staff,
right?
Again, it doesn't matter what you have on the field, man. And I think the teams that understand that in the NFL, they grade out really well when it comes to coaching staffs, right? I mean, Tampa Bay they've graded out as a good coaching staff. They're not a really good football team, but look what they've done. They won a playoff game. They're going in a divisional round. It looks like they figured out with Baker Mayfield. So I don't know. You'll know probably by the weekend. And remember, man, news drops on Friday. Why? Because people think it's going to disappear by Monday. So you might know by Friday if Jerry Jones makes the announcement that McCarthy's coming back for another season.
Yep. Could be a possibility. And Mickey, I see 2 of your comments. First one being, Mickey, did we hear about the Golden State Warriors assistant coach? Yeah. Fortunately for Dejan Milojevic, if I remember his last name correctly, ended up passing away at a heart attack at dinner, the team dinner. 46 years old.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, man. 46. That's
Listen, that's why I say it all the time. Enjoy the moment, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. You're not guaranteed the next 5 minutes. Enjoy the moment. The only thing you're guaranteed is death, taxes, and what happened in the past. The future, it's just a future. That's it until it happens. I mean, it's 6:20 now. who say that, one of us don't have some sort of heart attack or something else by 625. Not, I don't know. Just saying. Just saying. It could happen. It could happen. Just throwing it out there.
You're like, hold on a second.
No, but let's, not making light of obviously of the passing, but that's 46 years old. You don't expect that, especially at 46 years old. So you gotta make sure you can do all the right things. And it doesn't mean just because you eat healthy like all the time, because, things happen. Look how many people, there's been people who have lived until they're 99 years old,
who eat like
smoked,
shit,
drank all their life, ate crap. And they were healthy as a horse when they passed away. It's the craziest thing. So it's just, but God knows when it's our time. That's the best thing I can say.
Sucking down cigarettes and bacon. Meanwhile, I'm eating fruit and whey protein, right? I mean, you're right. So.
Exactly. When they're coming around, hello, how are you? Yeah, I took another one. How's it going? All the good fun stuff that comes along with it. Joey B gets a good one, but I'm going to wait for that one. Joey B says, if Eagles let Sirianni go, Pete Carroll, would he be a good fit for the organization and the city? I don't see Pete Carroll coming to Philly. Pete Carroll, as good as a coach as he is, Joey, I just don't see what he would do. As a coordinator, I could see him, offensive coordinator. As far as a head coach, I couldn't see him taking over the helms out there in Philadelphia. I don't believe so. At least what happened with Seattle the last 2 seasons, I don't think so. Am I wrong, Rich?
No, I mean, he's a young 72.
Right.
I don't think he's going back to college. He doesn't want to coach kids. He might take a year off, man, be in the booth. We've seen it, right? We saw it with Sean Payton. Yeah. We've seen it before in the past. But he's an energetic guy. I mean, I'll tell you what, his last gift to Seattle was them fleecing Denver with Russell Wilson. I mean, he knew something, obviously, a lot of us didn't know. I mean, I thought Russell Wilson was cooked, but it was pretty clear that there was some disconnect between him and the franchise quarterback. And now you're seeing it with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson in Denver. So sometimes just because you retread these guys, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work, right? I mean, when the Eagles hired Andy Reid, nobody knew who the hell he was. He was just part of that Green Bay staff. No one knew who he was. And Andy Reid had a great career with the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Multiple, 4 straight NFC championships. They get to the Super Bowl, albeit they lose it. He goes to Kansas City and he wins a couple, and he's a Hall of Fame coach.
Yep. It's one of those things. Again, life happens, but I just don't think people end up being there. To me, someone like Mike Vrabel who come in here, I think he can actually definitely shake up his team, get them to where they're supposed to be, get them right. That's just my thing. Belichick, I don't think would really win the hearts of Philadelphians. Just saying from things that happened in the past. But when it comes down to it, is he a winning coach? Yes. So could he turn his team around as well? Sure, he could. I just think that Jerry Jones is going to basically tell him, here's the number to my bank vault. Here's the number to my deposit box. Whatever you want, it's yours. Because you figure that the Falcons at this point are probably the heaviest ones running after him. And if I would think, they're probably going to offer him money like Ohtani out there in L.A. They're probably going to tell him, listen, how about
it might be a Gruden contract. It could be 10 years, $100 million. It could be that type of contract. Every coach, everyone says, well, why would you want to go to Dallas? Well, you know that going in, right? It's not like I'm hired by the Dallas Cowboys to be their head coach, and I don't know that their owner is a meddling owner who's going to roam the sidelines and hog up the camera on national games that are televised, right? So you kind of know going in what you're dealing with. Does Belichick want to deal with that? Does he want free reign? Does he want total control? He did a bad job as GM over the years with some draft picks. Harbaugh's got that ego. Harbaugh's probably going to leverage what's transpiring right now with these openings to maybe get more money and make more money with Michigan and continue to stick it to the NCAA. I think they need, again, if you're going to bring Sirianni back, then you're going to go all in with him, okay? If you have any type of reservations and you're not sold entirely on him, then you got to pull the plug, man. And then you have to live with that decision and hope you get the guy that you're looking to get. And to your point, to me, Mike Vrabel, you want that Dan Campbell in you, right?
Yep.
No nonsense. Hold players accountable. And I'm sure, I don't know, you might have the cuts for tonight, but I don't care that Kelce and Fletcher Cox went to bat for Nick Sirianni. It's not their call.
Correct. Yeah.
It's Jeffrey Lurie's call.
Yep. I didn't bother loading that up because I felt the same exact way. I don't care for it, honestly, because my thing is that Sirianni should have been coming out there and straighten out this team and get them right, not let them collapse the way they did. So yeah, I didn't even bother with that one. I'm not a fan of someone having to come out here. You got to defend your coach for said reason when you know what should have happened back, 5 to 6 weeks ago. So I didn't bother with that one. 2 comments before we go into the first break here at the end of the first quarter, going into the second. Mickey says, no, hear what Jerry Jones will say to make Mike say you're fired now, get out. Listen, we'll see. Stranger things happen. And Joey B says, Jesus, Angel, don't scare Quinones. I'm not saying that.
Fine. You know why? It's 6:26.
Exactly. And I said 5 minutes from now. See, he gets it. He gets it. Sorry, as I was getting the group message from the lovely Miss Robin. I want to make sure that everything was A-okay and sounding good. So, all right. After the break, we'll get into some more stuff. And yes, God bless the assistant Warriors coach. It's a shame. It's just, anyways, things happen. It's a shame. So hopefully his family, it's a tough time. I know they postponed the game, rightfully so, as they should. Because again, it's just when something like that's just very unexpected. No different in Edge of Philly Sports. One of our guys as well. I think he was in his 20s. I want to say same thing. Just a passing. Again, listen. Count your blessings because you are not guaranteed tomorrow. So after the break, we'll talk about Mayo. Talking about when he came into the New England presser today, how he's not going to be Bill Belichick. Not surprising. Obviously, he wanted to be himself. And then Israel from the Colts overdose. What in the heck was that all about? That was apparently last week, but just talked about this week. So after break, we'll get into that and more. It is Martinez Company here at the bottom of the hour. I am Angel Martinez. He is Rich Quinones on the Tony Bruno Sports Network. Don't forget, starting the day off in the AM, it is Pete Shepard with the Pete Shepard Show from 7 to 10 a.m., followed by Defo and Luby from 10 to 12. Then the best of 1 hour version of it from 12 to 1, followed by LFG with Dave Benz, Jim Cosymore, Matt Fowler, the producer, and Jess Taylor on the Tony Bruno Sports Network. Also, Tony and Miss Robin. It's a lot of stuff you got to remember. Put it out there. Make sure it goes well. But Tony and Miss Robin, of course, on the Tony Bruno Show from 3 to 6 p.m. Myself and Rich here. Martinez Company from 6 to 8. And then closing out the night, it is AJ Johnson this evening following us and Monday through Thursday. Yes, senor.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm waiting for you to fire up, the next wise ass comment. You'll see. Go ahead. We can address
what
that.
Is up with Rich's hair?
It's gorgeous locks, Mick. What do you want?
That's right.
I do have broadcast coming up, so I have to get it cleaned up a little bit. So,
hold on for a second. Mickey, did you not see the pictures with Roy Jones Jr. and Rich over the weekend? And then you wonder why about the hair. It's the looks, Mickey. When you are in greatness, as I am with Rich Quinones every evening that I am blessed. By the way, speaking about heart attacks, you're going to start giving me a heart attack, Mr. Quinones, because I'm looking in the window, looking in the minute. Oh, look who decides to pop in as a diva a minute before the show starts. Every single night, you give me a freaking heart attack. My goodness. All right.
Yeah, but I give you that's, I don't plan to do that. It's just when I get acclimated and I sit down and I have my notes, it's not to, I'm not like sitting in the green room or anything like that. I'll get on a couple more minutes earlier. I promise you.
That's okay. I know you're coming. Believe me. If I don't, then there's a problem. Joey B says, as we go into the break here we go. Music break. Angel lip singing on a Wednesday night. Well, we're going into the commercials. The funniest one that I enjoy the most is not here. So it might be on the next round at the 7:30 hour, but it's always the favorite one that I have is when the lady talks about tequila. By far my favorite throwback commercial. That is absolutely phenomenal. Joey B says, Quinones says, great lettuce. Keep it flowing, Rich.
Who knows it?
Hey, and the Penguin AZ. What up, Angel? Money Man, Rich and Company. How about the Packers? Go back, go. Oh, Penguin AZ. I do have a great guest for you tomorrow night. Wayne Henderson from the Packers Fan Podcast is coming on. You are going to absolutely love him. He is on my network on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Does a phenomenal job. Has been doing it now for 15 plus years. So I thought about you, Penguin AZ. So we will be talking Green Bay. And then also AJ Spur, who covers the Miami Dolphins. He'll be on Friday. So BigSarge tonight, later on this evening, who covers Houston Astros, Houston Rockets, and the Houston Texans. And also is on Sports Talk 790 AM out there in Houston. So he'll be on. Then tomorrow, Wayne Henderson will be on with us. And Friday, as usual, Delco Dave will be with us. Rich as well, unless Rich is boxing someone on Friday. Because I did hear he had a bout, I think, with Mike Tyson. I'm not too sure. That's just rumors and speculation. We'll find out a little bit later on. Also, two more comments before we go here. Joey B. Quinones got to be the next Golden Bachelor with that hair.
Hell out of here.
Oh, man. Penguin AZ, let's go. Yeah, baby. Listen, I told you, Penguin AZ, I told you. I was not going to forget about you. So you're really going to like Wayne. Wayne's a really good guy. So knowledgeable. Him and his partner do an outstanding job. And you guys can listen to the replays always on Sports Talk, Sports Radio, 102.9 FM The Game. So, all right. You guys, we're going to like some vintage commercials we got coming up here. And then, of course, we'll bring in back the Spanish version at the bottom of the hour. So you are listening to, and don't forget also, the lines are open. 844-644-TONY, 844-644-8669. You are listening to Martinez and Company on the Tony Bruno Sports Network.
You know I got a brand.
You're listening to Martinez and Company
That's right.
on the Tony Bruno Sports Network.
When you say that, you said a lot of things nobody else can say. When you say that, you've gone as far as you can go to get the very best. When you say but, you said the word that means you like to do it all. When you say but, it means you want the beer that's got a taste that's number one. When you say hot, you tell the world you know what makes it all the way. When you say but, you say you care enough to only want the king of beers. There is no other one, there's always something less, because the king of beers is leading all the rest. When you say Budweiser, you've said it all.
Everybody doesn't like something, but nobody doesn't like Sara Lee. Everybody doesn't like something, but nobody doesn't like Sara Lee.
Oh, the big red letters stand for the Jell-O family. Oh, the big red letters stand for the Jell-O family. That's Jell-O, yum yum yum. Jell-O pudding, yum yum yum. Jell-O duck, Fioca pudding, Jesserie. Patty cake cookies, patty cake cookies. Patty cake baker, you're a famous man.
Well, all I do is make them just as good as I can.
What is your secret, Mr. Patty Cake Man?
I sample them, ladies, one from each pan.
Children stop shoving. There's more in the oven. Hey, Mom!
Put patty cake cookies on your shopping list.
Oatmeal, chocolate chip, and sugar mist. I'm seeing varieties on your market shelf.
Why, they're so good you're lucky I don't eat them all myself.
Patty cake cookies. Patty cake cookies. Gotta satisfy.
Blue cellophane package, you can see what you buy.
What makes the taste of good patty cake man?
Well, to tell the truth, I sample them, two from each pan.
Once upon a time there was an engineer. Choo-choo Charlie was his name, we hear. He had an engine and he sure had fun. He used good and plenty candy to make his train run.
Charlie says, love my good and plenty. Charlie says, really rings the bell. Charlie says, love my good and plenty. Don't know any other candy that I love so.
Now, back to Martinez and Company
It's always playing in my car.
on the Tony Bruno Sports Network.
Ay. Fonzie. DY. Oh, oh no, oh no. Oh, hey, go. See Sabes que ya llevo un rato mirándote. Tengo que bailar contigo hoy. Chihuahua. Vi que tu mirada ya estaba llamándome. Muéstrame el camino que yo voy. Oh, tú eres el imán y yo soy el metal. Me voy acercando y voy armando el plan. Solo con pensarlo se acelera el pulso. Oh yeah, ya me está gustando más de lo normal. Todos mis sentidos van pidiendo más. Esto hay que tomarlo sin ningún apuro. Despacito, quiero respirar tu cuello despacito.
Y como siempre, gracias a ustedes por venir para atrás con nosotros. Aquí a las 6:36 de la noche es miércoles. Aquí el enero 17 del 2024. Yo soy Ángel Martínez, él es Ricardo Quiñones. Y muchas gracias por estar con nosotros aquí en Martinez Company. Siempre el lunes al viernes a este tiempo de 6 a 8 de la noche. No se olviden de olviden el app en el Google y Android Store, en el Apple Store. Así para que ustedes siempre estén con ustedes, con nosotros cada noche. Y también pueden llamar al show al 844-644-8669. 844-644-8669. Y muchas gracias por siempre estar aquí con nosotros. And for those who always press the number one option on their phone, thank you for tuning in to Martinez Company here on this now 6:37, January 17th, 2024. As I am Angel Martinez, he is Rich Quinones. Martinez Company always live Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. right here on the Tony Bruno Sports Network. Don't forget to download the apps. Super important. So therefore, you guys can hear us all over the world, even in the Paris Olympics. Therefore, when you're in Paris and you guys don't miss a show, you have the app. You can tell some friends out there in the Olympics, hey, and we'll expand the love of the family even more. As the text thread was going back and forth, I had to make sure I forwarded out an email. So the break quickly came up, but that was pretty good anyways. So as I see a couple comments before we get into the topic I was talking about as far as Gerard Mayo, let me go back here. Penguin AZ says, thanks. That was prior to the commercial break about the Green Bay Packers. Joey B says, what the hell is this commercial? Yeah, it's an old one. But like MMJ or Budweiser, LOL. Is that like a Michelob Ultra? I can't remember. MMJ. How climatic the Bud jingle? Yes. Sarah Lee laughing. Jello, yum, yum, yum. The tequila commercial is so funny. Donald, I agree. I'm telling you, by far, that is the funniest commercial. I mean, it's so great. I might even, if it's not on the next commercial break, maybe I'll come back into it. I'll find it on YouTube and we'll lead into that. That thing is absolutely phenomenal. It's great. And of course, Joey B says, Carrie Underwood needs to do a patty cakes commercial jingle. And that would be something. I'm pretty sure someone would absolutely love it. But Gerard Mayo, and I don't expect any different from what he said. Earlier today, his top message in his introduction as Patriots head coach, I'm not trying to be Bill. And he shouldn't be. He should be Gerard Mayo. I mean, there's no reason for him to try to be like someone else because, again, that's the reason why they believed in you. You were a player, now the head coach, first black head coach for the New England Patriots. And I would expect he's going to set the bar maybe even higher than what Bill had. Bill, he had a high, bar level. I won't say level, but he had it up there, in all, of course, tongue in cheek. But I mean, Belichick, when he came out there, he knew what he expected from the guys. Just, the last 2-3 years especially after Tom Brady, you weren't going to find another Tom Brady, just like San Fran would never find another Brock Purdy. So if that was a message coming across, then hopefully it's conveyed to all the players because you should be coming in as your own genuine head coach and figuring out now who's going to be part of your coaching staff. So my only thing is I'm wondering, does he keep the same lineup of coaches that he has right now? Or does he decide, you know what, I'm just going to go a whole different route and I'm going to start picking and choosing who I want?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, Gerard Mayo is only 37 years of age, right? So he basically, he lifer with the Pats and learned from Bill Belichick over the last 3-4 plus seasons. Well-spoken, right? I think said all the right things. I think I mentioned I would never want to be the man to replace the man, right? You want to be the man to replace the man who replaced the man, right? You say it in tongue in cheek, right. But he's up to that challenge. There's going to be growing pains. I mean, the problem with Belichick over the last several years is that his talent evaluation, what was once his strength, turned into a weakness. I think it's because sometimes when you have so much control, right? And Belichick doesn't care about the offense. He's a defensive guy. I mean, Belichick, he's out on the bench with his defensive coordinators and defensive players when the offense is out on the field. Mayo's a defensive guy. He was a great linebacker. So they come from that cloth, that school. I bet you Belichick on the way out had a lot of input / insight / hey, I think these are the guys you should keep. Because again, young coach, what do I need? I need guys around me that can make my job a lot easier. Young rookie quarterback, what do they need? They need a good tight end and they need a ground game to help them out a little bit. So if you're Mayo, you're thinking to yourself, hey man, Bill, whatever you can offer, I'll take it. But said all the right things. Listen, it's, again, when you've been successful as long as the Pats have, you're allowed to have a couple down years, man.
Yeah.
It's the NFL, it's cynical. And then when they get the right players and the personnel in place, Buffalo believes their window is closing. Miami's starting to question if they have a franchise quarterback in Tua. They love the head coach and the weapons, but they're questioning Tua. The Jets are a mess. The Jets are run by a quarterback that had 4 friggin' snaps. Point being, if you're New England, look up a little bit because it might take a while. I don't think they're ever going to get to where they once were, Angel, but they'll be competitive soon. And I think Mayo's a good start, man. I like him as a head coach, young guy. That's the direction that the league is going now.
Yep. I think so. I think you're right. I mean, I don't see a problem with him being there. I'm just wondering, because I don't think his name, and granted, of course, when Black Monday rolled around, I mean, there wasn't like this, all these set of coaches that were already, people just biting it, at the bit there and saying, all right, this is the guy that I want. So I'm wondering if New England had thought that maybe that Mayo would be one of those candidates that could be possibly could be picked up by, again, in any of the 31 other teams. So I'm wondering if they saw something enough in him, which obviously they did. But I'm saying that was there something that captivated them to say, you know what, before anybody goes after him, this is our guy.
Yeah, it's a very good point you raise. And I think it's one of those situations where he was being groomed, right? Where we want to keep it in-house. We want to keep it in the Patriot family, the quote Patriot way.
Right.
And because he evidently was extremely close with Belichick, it just made sense. You had former players go to bat for him. And again, I also think he probably graded out very well with the interview. And they went a little, I don't want to say outside the box. That name just started to float around as the season kind of went on because the thought was maybe Bill was going to run it back one more time. But I like the hire. I think that's what, Houston, I love the DeMeco Ryans hire. My concern with the Texans, not to, stray too much, was the ownership got rid of 2 black coaches prior to DeMeco Ryans. And I was wondering, all right, you bring in DeMeco Ryans really has to consider that sometimes they are very short, very reactionary. If it doesn't go well and the season goes south and all of a sudden, boom, what am I going to be, the 3rd minority head coach to get fired from this organization? Like, I don't want any parts of that. Well, he took a shot. He bet on himself. The kid Stroud looks like a big time franchise quarterback, and look where they're at. They're in the divisional round against the Ravens. So I think when you know. And I think the Patriots are pretty confident Mayo can be their head coach for the next 10 plus years.
I think so. I mean, and obviously, I don't think Robert Kraft, you have one coach in there for 24 years. And add 20 years right now to Mayo. He still would be in his prime. It used to be before, people were looking like, oh, you're in your 50s, you're old. Not anymore. Again, Pete Carroll, just like you said earlier, 72 and still sharp. I know people don't like to hear it. Donald Trump, 80 years old, still sharp. The man's still traveling. Traveled to New York today, is going to New Hampshire to make, his comments, whatever. So there's people out there just because, the age thing, people can say whatever they want to. I'm 53, about to hit 54 here in a couple of months, but you don't ever stop dreaming. You never stop doing the things that you love to do and keep aiming, for the stars, as it used to be said once upon a time on a show with Ed McMahon, in Star Search. But, it's just when it's people when they think, well, the guy's 55. As a player, yes, it's a whole different story. Once you get over your 40s, listen, the body slows down. I don't care who says what. As far as an athlete, now, maybe T.O. is a little bit different, but, he's constantly working out. It's different. When you have so much time you can't work out, it happens. But there's also been people too who have worked out and it didn't do much for them. So I'm just glad they went with what they believe was going to be the best hire for them. And then we'll see where Belichick ends up. I just think Atlanta, and I didn't even see it. I think Atlanta was a very dark horse. But is Atlanta right now, though, Rich, really kind of set up to go anywhere in the next 2 to 3 years?
No, and I'm glad you bring that up. I don't think so. They need a bridge quarterback, and whether that's like a Russell Wilson or a Kirk Cousins. And to your point with Belichick, he's 71. The guy's still sharp, right? It's just, this is a crazy scenario I'm going to throw out there. And I know you guys are going to be like, where are you going with this? Is it possible that Belichick making the rounds and the reports coming out of Dallas are that Jerry was absolutely furious with the postseason loss to Green Bay. But again, McCarthy and their staff graded out pretty well during the season. And I know that because James Hasty, former All-Pro defensive back corner with the Kansas City Chiefs, created this algorithm analytics data-driven called CPAS. And I know that he's been pushing it to the NFL, and it's a way to find the best coaching candidates. And they were one of the highest graded teams out there. So from that standpoint, okay, even though McCarthy sometimes makes ridiculous decisions, right? It's the coaches under him. And even Quinn, believe it or not, it's kind of crazy to think that because Quinn had some gaffes as well. Point being, I see a scenario where the Dallas Cowboys need to make a big time splash. And when they fire, or if they fire McCarthy, that's, to your point, Angel, when Jerry Jones opens up that checkbook and says, what do I need to get you here, Bill? With that being said, I also think there's a trickle-down effect. And I also believe that if the Eagles were going to move on from Sirianni, now here, right, they were going to move on from Sirianni, they would also make a push for Belichick. Because the last thing they would want is a guy like Belichick to go to their NFC East rival, the Dallas Cowboys. You don't want, you want to try to poach that guy. Now, I'm not saying that's going to play out like that. I'm saying if they move on from Sirianni, then the call has to be made, even if Belichick interviews 5 times with Atlanta, 5 times with Tennessee, 5 times with the Chargers, 5 times with the Cowboys. If they move on from Sirianni, they have to at least have Belichick in the building. Whether they allow him to leave or not is up to them. But I can see that type of scenario playing out. I really can. And it would be fascinating because can you imagine Belichick in Philadelphia? Think about that for a moment.
Yeah. I think even with the fans, because let's say for all intents and purposes, that actually happens. I mean, the fan base, I don't know if it would be one of those welcoming things or because we all know what happened in Jacksonville. I mean, there's no Mickey Mouse in it. We all know what happened out there. So it's one of those things that obviously Philly fans are not fond of. And then obviously they got redemption by beating Tom Brady a couple years ago in Minnesota, with Belichick still under the helm. But it does make you scratch your head and realize or even wonder, like, I wouldn't even know, honestly, what to think. And I've been a lifelong Eagles fan. So I wouldn't know what to think. Like, wow, is this true? And then what's to happen? I mean, it can only, I would think if Belichick can go back to the way he was, it can only get better. If we see the same disaster we've seen for the last 3 years from the Patriots, then no.
Yeah, but they didn't have the talent, though.
Right.
Their defense actually came on during the season. Belichick instantly gives that Eagles defense credibility. Patricia's dead man walking. He's done.
He should be.
Right? you got a young quarterback, you've got a tight end, you've got a running back. Hopefully you bring back Swift. You got wide receivers. He's not going to tolerate that crap. He's dealt with divas receivers before. He's dealt with diva egos before, Belichick, throughout 20, 25 something years, and it's worked out pretty well. And if it's not his way, then it's the highway. But those two teams, the reason I bring it up is who had horrible losses over the weekend? The Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
With the expectations that were pressed upon them going into the postseason. So again, these are not normal times, man. I mean, typically you would stick with what you have, but we're not living in normal times right now in the NFL. It's what have you done for me lately? It's win now. And I don't, my personal opinion is I don't really care what anyone says when they start talking about a guy like Belichick. If he is a free agent and out on the market, come on. You're going to sit there, truth serum, man to man, behind closed doors and tell me, you're happy with your guy. You're not going to even entertain a conversation, especially if you don't have a head coach and you just fired one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not buying that for 1 minute, man. I'm not. That's utterly ridiculous. That's pure arrogance. It really is. And I'm not saying he would be the right fit, but I'm saying if they move on from Sirianni, if Dallas moves on from Mike McCarthy, I bet you there's going to be this, race to bring in Belichick to the building and not let him get out. That's just my opinion. That's all.
Right. No, I agree because I think if he does end up in Dallas is, I mean, you couldn't not pick them as the odds-on favorite to win a Super Bowl next year. I mean, it's just depending on
who's the quarterback.
Huh? Well, I know, but I don't think. Okay, so to that note, I don't think he would stick with Dak though. I think he would go shopping, honestly. But the problem is now,
I'm going to try to find the updated odds on Belichick, because we always get the odds on coaches that are going to be.
Well, here's a question for you as well as you're looking up for the odds there.
Yep.
Do you believe that if Jerry Jones decides to stick with Mike McCarthy, do you believe that McCarthy sticks with Dak Prescott?
Wow, that's a good question. I'd have to look at. Let me pull up Prescott's contract. So right now, 4-year deal, right? Averaging $40 million, 45 to 50 range. When's his deal up? Okay, here you go. So Dak, final year. Okay, so he's entering the final year of his contract in 2024. So
right.
That tells you that here, if they bring back McCarthy, they bring back Dak.
You think?
Yeah, because he's in the final year of his contract. I should rephrase that properly and better. If McCarthy comes back, Dak's going to be the quarterback. But again, it's Jerry Jones, right? He's just, he's almost like the old, George Steinbrenner. He very emotional at times, make that rash decision. I think Prescott, they're going to chalk it. They're going to spin the narrative and chalk it up to, he's played better. And then, the defense let them down. And that's why they're getting rid of Quinn and yada, yada, yada. And they weren't on the same page with CD and they dealt with some injuries. They'll spin it a certain way. I still believe no matter what, they need a new head coach. They need to kind of overhaul the coaching staff. And by the way, Falcons at plus 250. Washington's another dark horse, plus 700. I don't even see the Eagles on the board. Tennessee at plus 1,300 for Belichick. So do that with it as you may. I just think it's crazy, Angel. You've got all those coaches we mentioned and all
right.
the coaches getting fired. And I can't recall a time where you had those names out there potentially looking for jobs. And I also, it pains me to say this, I also believe the one domino in all this is Harbaugh. What's he going to do? Is he going to go back to Michigan or?
Speaking of, there was a clause that he wants in his contract where he said basically he can't get, either fired or implicated, whatever it was, from the whole fallout from this year. So if the NFL picks him up, basically it's like, hey, sorry, that's when I was with Michigan. I'm not with Michigan anymore.
Yeah, but it's his buyout.
There you go.
His buyout dropped from 2.25 to 1.5. So that's if he wants to push his new contract start date back to mid-February to wait to see what happens with the NFL coaching cycle. And that makes sense. See, Harbaugh to me, it reminds me of Gruden all those years. And I always thought Gruden was such a friggin' fraud and overrated head coach. He won a Super Bowl on Tony Dungy's back. Everyone knows it. Everyone in Tampa knows it. All the players know it. And every year it was, you got to go out and get Gruden. You got to go out and get Gruden. And then he signs 10 years for $100 million. I laughed on the air. I said he wasn't even going to coach for 3 years. I don't think he lasted 3 years. And that was an utter disgrace and debacle. But he had the sexy name. He had the resume, the cachet. Harbaugh, to me, if you think about it, has done more than Gruden. He's a better coach than Gruden. We've seen what he's been able to do in college. We've seen what he's been able to do in the pros. So, I mean, my buddy's a Dallas fan. He's like, I'll take Harbaugh. But when you're dealing with egos and you're dealing with an owner like Jerry Jones, that's when you clash.
Yep. That's why I'm not 1,000% sold on Dallas. Atlanta, for some reason, they really, really want him. But I would think that obviously you would have to be in a rebuilding phase, at least the next 3 seasons with the Atlanta Falcons, if you want to do anything whatsoever. I mean, they started bad. Then they started winning games, kind of started shocking everybody. But then the true Falcons came back at the end of the season, and that was it for Atlanta. Now, they are in a rebuild mode. Obviously, they got rid of their coach, so now they have to figure out what they want to do next. But they would be. And Mike Tomlin, again, I know he wants to go back to Pittsburgh. That's his thing. But I'm wondering if a team would buy out the final year of his contract for his services somewhere else. I wonder if he would just turn around and tell Pittsburgh, I did say I was going to coach in 2024. I just didn't specifically say per se it was going to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
No, he's a lifer to me with Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I'm just what I mean is if he's coming back for one more year, it's going to be with Pittsburgh. It's going to be with Pittsburgh. And if it doesn't work out next year or 2 years from now, he'll get a head coaching gig. I mean, there's no question teams will line up for Mike Tomlin. But I also think the way the NFL is, remember a couple years ago, McVay was like that hot, genius.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing what McDaniel's doing in Miami. We're seeing what Shanahan's doing in San Francisco. Campbell, everyone mocked Campbell at his presser, and look where the Lions are. So I do think the league wants to go young, but I also don't think there's a problem with bringing in some of those coaches I mentioned as opposed to like retreading.
Right.
Like I would laugh if Dallas fired Mike McCarthy and Tennessee hired him. Like, to me, that makes no sense. You might as well have kept Mike Grable. For years, Dan Quinn or, the Bill O'Briens of the world. I mean, it's just some of these guys, they can't coach. They're hard. Greg Schiano. Some of these guys are meant for college.
Yeah.
They can't make that leap. So it's a young man's game, man.
Sure is. All right. Well, we are quickly at the end of the second quarter, heading into the third quarter. Top of the hour here, 6:59 on the East Coast. Still about some 50 some odd degrees on this part of the earth. I know up north it's getting colder. I heard there is a light at the end of the tunnel, Rich, because I keep hearing from the local forecasters here, come next week, everybody is supposed to warm up. And they were saying, normal than above average temperatures. So you figure what in Philly this time of the year, you're looking in the 50s. In January, Jersey, about 40s. So, I guess at 45 and 50, it would feel a lot better than the teens right now.
Monday, it's supposed to be 36. We're supposed to get snow this weekend, 80% chance. But again, because I'm closer to the water, hopefully we don't get any. 27-31. It was friggin' 13 degrees this morning. 13 degrees.
Don't miss it. I don't miss it. That's why I'm here.
Friday, it'll be 53 next Friday.
That's not bad. It's a bounce back.
Not 2 days from now, but well,
but
it's Yeah, man. I cannot take the cold.
No, it sucks. Believe me, I'm telling you, I don't miss it. I do not miss it whatsoever. Running around the 70 yards? Nope, not at all. Don't miss it. So, but then there is February. Everybody knows that is the coldest month in winter. And the way the winter's going right now, it could be dramatically cold. So, coming up, it's going to be a short break. So don't go anywhere, because when I mean short, it pretty much goes into the promo to the station, and then we come right back. But the phone lines, the text lines are open, 844-644-TONY, 844-644-8669. You are listening to Martinez and Company with myself, Angel Martinez, Rich Quinones, and we'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been waiting, and now it's here. TBSN, the Tony Bruno Sports Network.
Make some noise!
Tune in at 7 a.m. and hear Pete Shepard till 10. And then Defo and Luby from 10 a.m. till noon. And then the man himself, Tony Bruno, and the Tony Bruno Show starts at 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Martinez and Company from 6 p.m. to 8. And we've got more to come. The Tony Bruno Sports Network. Download the app. Tell your friends the game is on. TBSN.
My face above the water, my feet can't touch the ground, and it feels like I can see the sands on the horizon every time you are not around. I'm slowly drifting away, wave after wave, wave after wave.
Now, if anybody couldn't see what I did there, is we're coming into the top of the hour here. Martinez Company, 7:02 here on a Wednesday evening hump day for those who like to keep track of the days of the week. I figured I'd send Rich some vibes there with waves, ocean sounds, since he's right there by the Jersey Shore. Hopefully give him some warmth going up that way. So, you got to make sure when you come back with the music, it's got to make a lot of sense. So that one, I just figured I just throw it out there, see if anybody's catching any waves. Down here, there's plenty of waves to catch because we've had so much rain. It's probably waves of waves in your own backyard. Cape Coral yesterday ended up with 8 inches of rain in 1 hour.
Wow.
Absolutely insane. That's why it's been here. Normally, we don't get a whole bunch of rain. We do get a ton of sun, usually a good portion throughout the year, but in wintertime, you can believe about 90% of the winter, it's nothing but blue skies. This year, not so much because, again, the El Nino pattern, blah, blah, blah. And so we're getting a lot more cloud cover, a lot more rain. The good thing is, though, our grass is nice and green here in the wintertime, which normally in the summer it's green. In the wintertime, it's brown. And because of all the rain, it's been nice and green. So the only thing is the Gulf temperatures are pretty chilly, even though it's a lot warmer than the Atlantic Ocean. But I think right now the Gulf, last I checked, was about 59 degrees. So
nice.
Yeah, no one's getting in it right now except for the brave-hearted. Me, I top off right at 60. 59, yeah. Dip it. Ooh, no, time to get out.
ESPN posted their, I guess fantasy, predictions. So they've got Belichick to the Falcons. They've got Mike Vrabel to Seattle. Antonio Pierce sticking with the Raiders. Ben Johnson, who's a hot name, with Washington. Aaron Glenn, very good coordinator, did a great job with Detroit, to Tennessee. And then Brian Callahan to Carolina, young up-and-coming coordinator as well. That's just them. That's their take on it.
Right.
Nowhere, did I mention Harbaugh? Nope. That the inclination would be then he's going to stick with Michigan. I still don't believe that, though.
I don't think so either. But Mike Vrabel to Seattle, does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, Grable, listen, I'm not the biggest Mike Grable fan, but I also think a lot of issues in Tennessee. The quarterback issue is one of them. You lose Henry. They had some injuries this year. They're a young team. Their defense kind of let them down. It didn't help that they got off to kind of a flat start, but he can coach, man. Sometimes you just need change scenery, different team, different personnel.
Right. I agree. I just think that maybe, they would have picked somebody else other than Seattle. Not saying there's anything wrong with Seattle, but you got to move on from Geno Smith. I'm sorry. You got to move on.
Yeah, I think you're right. Do you ever check out, and the listeners too, check out Tankathon? So Tankathon basically gives you all the 4 majors, even the WNBA as well, with like draft status. So like Carolina, Washington, New England's number 3, Arizona, the Chargers, the Giants, Tennessee's at number 7. But you can kind of see like where some of these teams, the direction or projections are going to go. It's a pretty cool site. The reason I bring it up is because of the fluctuation during the season when teams are jockeying for position, how all of a sudden they can go and, all right, this team's grabbing a Drake May, and then all of a sudden, no, they're going to grab a wide receiver. Like, it's fascinating because Arizona sits at number 4, and Arizona, they're slated to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. And it's funny because last year and earlier in the offseason and this season, we were questioning Kyler Murray if he's going to be the quarterback going forward. He's played himself back in their good graces. But the reason I bring it up to you is because you got some of those teams that we mentioned, Seattle, Washington.
Right.
I don't know yet about Bryce Young. Maybe I'm too hard on the kid. I don't know your thoughts. But we're talking about quarterback needy teams as well. So that's another thing you have to factor in, right? You want to get these head coaches in place because you're going to blink. The offseason, the draft's right around the corner. Fill out the coaching staff so these guys can start looking at film, start going through these mock drafts. That's why sometimes I think if you wait too long, you really missed a boat.
Yep.
You really missed a boat coming up with your best candidate.
All right, I'll get to my Bryce Young and Michael Penix thought here in a second, but Donald Harrison says, I think Sirianni will be back with the Eagles next year, but I do think most of the assistant coaches will be gone. Yeah, we brought that up as well yesterday, Donald. And I think if it's going to come back, as Lloyd had talked about it yesterday as well, and he asked me if would I be sold if they bring back Nick, but a new set of coaches. The new set of coaches, I do believe, is going to happen with the Eagles, but I'm still not sold that Nick would be that guy leading said coaches into 2024. But again, I'm not Jeffrey Lurie. I'm not Howie. So they're going to figure out. I'm pretty sure they're going to take some time, figure it out. Whether it's, I think Lurie was due to go to Vietnam or something like that within the coming days. So and he might just wait. He might just make Nick sweat it out.
So let me ask you a question then.
Sure.
If by what you're saying, if you're the Eagles right now, if you're Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, and you're going to bring Sirianni back, but you also want input on how he fills out his staff, i.e. offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, we could assume both are going to be gone. I mean, the Matt Patricia move was a Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie move, and it blew up in their face, right?
Yeah.
But if you're those guys, and if I'm St. Angel, yeah, we're going to bring you back, but I want input. Doesn't that kind of contradict, me saying you are the head coach? Like, my actions are contradicting what I'm telling you. Like, point being, when I leave the room, I need to know I have complete confidence in Angel Martinez as head coach of this team, that he can fill the coaching staff out properly.
Right.
And if I don't believe that, and I have to micromanage, then again, why are you bringing the guy back?
Correct. No, and that's why I don't think, if they are, it wouldn't make any sense to me, is that you clean house and you say, okay, we're going to start from scratch here, but we're going to bring back the same problem. I mean, it's like take your car to a mechanic. All right, listen, I know the alternator's bad. Yeah, I know too, right? But what I'm going to do, I'm going to replace your water pump, fuel pump, the turbine belt. I'm going to, transmission sounds like it's knocking a little bit. Not really, but we're going to do everything. What about the alternator? What about it? We're fixing everything around it.
Yeah.
So, that's at least that's the way it feels like to me. So,
yeah, but you're also not bringing in the guy who's in charge of the accounting department to micromanage the guy changing struts and brakes.
Correct. Good point. Good point with that one. That would be something. And so what do you do? I crunch numbers. So what are you doing with my car? I don't know. Listen, here's Google. There's YouTube. I'm just going to go to work. I'll see you in about 8 hours. But you're absolutely right. Michael Penix Jr., though, does he... So you figured what? The Heisman's going to go first. Who's going to probably end up in, New England? Unless... I know some people want Penix for New England, but I don't think they're going to get Michael Penix. So I'm wondering if Seattle decides to move on from Geno, I think Penix would be a good spot for Seattle.
So, again, mock drafts have Drake May because Washington's got a bunch of picks, man. Their 8-game losing streak helped. I think they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have 9 picks, man, across 3 rounds. So you got one quarterback going number 2, right? You got Jaden Daniels probably going to New England. Arizona's got Murray. They're not in the market for a quarterback. The Chargers have Herbert. They're not in the market for a quarterback. I think the Giants run it back with Daniel Jones.
Really?
Then that leads me to Tennessee. Maybe they run it back with Ryan Tannehill. I don't know. Atlanta at 8. Heineke, right? The veteran.
Yeah.
Or Ritter. And then you've got the Bears. And again, remember now, everyone's talking about what are they going to do with the number 1 draft pick? Caleb Williams, don't go there. Caleb Williams is talking about coming back. Caleb Williams is going to the Bears. I mean, I just don't see how he's not. And then you got to kind of fill out the rest of the board. So you mentioned Seattle. Seattle would be at 16. I mean, you got to think of what are their needs, right? I can't comment too much on Penix. I think he's a good college quarterback.
But he comes with injuries.
Huh?
He comes with injuries.
Yeah, but the other thing is I feel as though there's this knock on left-handed quarterbacks.
Well, that's true.
They throw funny. They have a different release, and GMs want to steer clear of them. It sounds ludicrous. There have been some great left-handed quarterbacks. Boomer Esiason was a great left-handed quarterback. Steve Young was a Hall of Fame left-handed quarterback. But I don't know. I mean, is this a case where the kid just put up these monster numbers in college on a Saturday, and can he do it on Sunday? Like, look here, you never told. What did you think of Bryce Young? I mean, quite frankly, I thought the kid was not a very good quarterback. I don't think he was NFL ready. I love Stroud coming out of college. I know it's Monday morning quarterbacking right now, but I watched enough of Stroud to know he's going to be a player. I was never a fan of Bryce Young.
He may not have been ready to come out yet. I think he should have done another year in college. It didn't help that he went to Carolina because I don't think the quarterback's coach obviously invested enough time and especially the O coordinator to make sure they can line up for success. It was almost like, okay, you're here in the NFL. Welcome. This is Carolina Panthers. We're going to get booed all season long. Oh, and by the way, we suck. But, you got to lead us to the promised land. Now, of course, I'm saying that facetiously because no one ever thinks when the season starts that we're going to be the most terrible team in the NFL. Coincidentally, that happened to be the Carolina Panthers. But, at the same token, when you bring in a kid, i.e. Jordan Love out there in Green Bay, you keep coaching him, even if he's the backup until finally Aaron Rodgers leaves, but you keep coaching him and keep up that confidence saying, no worry, listen, we got you. You're going to do well. You're going to do well. And this year it proved that. And in the beginning, it seemed like maybe not, but it has. Justin Fields, same thing with Chicago. I think with the right people in play, Justin Fields, I mean, he's a much better uptake than Bryce Young, that's for sure. But I think for him to really get better, Carolina, whomever the new HC is, would have to get somebody to say, listen, your job, once I come in and I get the perfect coordinator, that coordinator is going to be with that kid before the draft, during the draft, after the draft, to voluntary OTAs. This kid needs to be the next dynamite. Now, as you mentioned, Kyler Murray in Arizona moving on, I'm sorry. I do not know and or see what Arizona sees in Kyler Murray. I just think he's a bust of a quarterback. I don't think he's all that great.
I think that's
personally.
strong, man. I think he's matured. I think there was a lot of talk
Really?
of
Because
him
last
not
year,
really
don't
putting-
forget, he deleted all his stuff.
Yeah, but hey, AJ Brown did the same thing, right?
He did, yeah, but come on. When you really start throwing shade at your organization, even before the season started, that's pretty immature-ish.
It's a weak look, man. 100% agree with you. I think he improvises. I think he showed him a little gumption and some fight coming off that injury this year. They won some games. They're building something there. I've never been a huge Kyler Murray fan as well. I think there's something to be said if you're not going to put the time in and hit the book, so to speak, in the playbook.
Correct.
But I do want to, just to clarify, remember, Chicago has that number 1 draft pick. So there's talk about maybe trading that pick or teams trading down for that pick. So no matter what, they're going. I would love to see them be patient with Fields. But I think we're prisoners of the moment with some of these quarterbacks coming out of college. There's no guarantee that Penix, Drake May, Daniels, Williams are going to be great quarterbacks on Sunday. They're really it's a crapshoot, man. That's why if you screw it up, you're setting your franchise back 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, you really have to believe, your convictions have to be strong when you're drafting a quarterback or you're trading down a couple slots to get a quarterback. Because if you screw it up, jobs are on the line, man. I mean, it's GMs and head coaches. Texans, right spot, right time, and it's worked out. I mean, it's amazing to watch, and you've got a hell of a head coach. Carolina, they get rid of the quarterback. They got the owner throwing shit in the stands, and you got this kid that struggled, right?
Right.
And you're probably thinking to yourself, this kid's career is going to die to Carolina, and you feel bad for the kid. He needs to get coached up. Love, they had patience with it in Green Bay, and now you can make the argument, Angel, that he's playing the best quarterback position over the last month of the season. So the days of I draft Angel Martinez and he's going to sit beside or sit behind Rich Quinones, or Rich Quinones is drafted and he's going to sit behind Angel Martinez for 4 seasons are done. I draft you, your ass better be ready to play. It's sink or swim, and that's the problem sometimes. These guys are not ready to play.
No, they're not. CJ Stroud is like 1 in a million because, again, I mean, you look at the preseason, and preseason to me, obviously, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's the warm-up to the regular season. To me, I think where the NFL has gone wrong in a lot of these teams are that they're not putting in for the second year in a row. Nick Sirianni did not have the entire starting lineup all together during the preseason. And even though they got lucky at a 10-1 start, but even their first game out of the chute, you saw some, where they were kind of struggling a little bit, trying to get their rhythm together. To me, you got to stop that. I understand it's 17 weeks in the NFL. Don't get me wrong. If that's the case, then let's go down to 2 weeks for preseason games. Week 1 and then week 3, skip week 2 if you're afraid of those injuries. But to me, you're not putting your starting lineup in there. I don't care. Let's put them in there for 7 minutes. Because I mean, even during preseason, were there a couple of dirty hits during preseason? Yes. Some guys, from season prior,
sure,
they got upset at teams that were playing. Also, I'm also not a really, really big fan when, obviously, like if the Eagles go visit the Patriots, and you have these team joint practices because things get heated there, and then you're there, at the games, whatever. I think they should just go back to the way it was before. But that's my own lowly opinion. But to me, when the preseason rolls around, you need to put your veteran players in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, man. You can make a case for and against that, right? Because I always believed, all right, it's one series. What did you really learn from one series? I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. The Giants' last series in the preseason, Daniel Jones looked like a friggin' all-pro. And look at their offense, right? And then they got hit with the injury bug. I know what you're saying, though. You want some continuity, right?
Mm-hmm. But
you also have to take in consideration the rules now in place by the NFLPA, the Players Association. They want to shorten up, the hitting, the OTAs, training camp. Remember back in the day, there used to be 5 preseason games.
Yep.
5 preseason games when we had that 16-week season. Then we used to have 1 bye, then 2 byes. And then there was a bye, I think, a couple alternate years during the playoffs. You used to get a bye before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to money. They don't want to lose a preseason game because it's still TV money, broadcasting rights. They can sell it, Hall of Fame game, all this other stuff. But where I do agree with you, I do believe there needs to be more. You have to get your reps in, man. You have to. And that's why I was never a believer in resting players late. You can get hurt on any play, right? I always believe you want to have momentum going into the playoffs. And if you look at the teams that are standing right now, Detroit, Buffalo, the 49ers, Tampa, they all won some games going into the playoffs, man. They all have momentum. Baltimore. So I do agree with you in that regard, but it's the players don't want to hear that because they don't want to be out there in meaningless games to then, just in case they do get hurt.
Yep. I think, again, listen, right now, Tampa obviously beating the Eagles, but it seems there might be too much overhype, and we're only at the middle of the week going into the Bucs against Detroit. Detroit played well. I think Detroit can make it to the NFC Championship game. Again, that's just me, my own opinion. Baker Mayfield, which I said because I wasn't comfortable with the Eagles, was going to have himself a day, and he did. Not taking anything from what Baker did, so I don't want Bucs fans to be like, oh boy, here we go, jumping on bandwagons. I'm not. I just think they're kind of pushing Tampa Bay just a little bit too high. Bring it down to mid-level, and look at what you got going on in front of you. Just don't start looking to the NFC Championship game when you haven't gotten to the divisional game yet. You just came off a good wild card. Look at your divisional game. Slow it down a bit.
Now, full disclosure, I told you I had my futures on the Lions. My Super Bowl prediction, the Lions in Cincinnati. And I had Detroit winning it all. I had it on BYP on Q, put in my ticket. That's what I have. Obviously, Cincinnati. Okay, whatever. Chalk it up. I know it's only Wednesday, but my gut right now tells me that the Lions would shed Tampa.
Yep.
Mike, I just think the Eagles just played so bad, and Tampa is not a great team, and Detroit can run the football. They play really good red zone defense. If you saw what hurt Tampa the other night, they couldn't pull away because of their red zone offense. I think Baker comes back down to earth. But early Wednesday kind of gut look ahead, I do really like Detroit in this game. And obviously for selfish reasons. I mean, I would like to cash in.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm the same way too. It'd be nice. I think the Jared Goff story would be something to be talked about for years if it does happen. Because again, how pretty much LA was like, get out of here, kid, beat it, stupid. And off to Detroit he goes. Obviously, the switch from Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford, lucky enough, ends up winning the Super Bowl that same year. Kind of coincidentally, the first year that the Rams, LA, whatever freaking combination stadium they have out there, ends up winning the Super Bowl again in their home stadium, just like Tampa Bay. And the only reason why I happened here in Tampa Bay, obviously, because the LA Rams stadium wasn't ready yet. SoFi Stadium was still under construction. They didn't meet the deadline. And the only reason why the Bucs ended up winning at home was because there was no availability. So they decided to kind of switch around where it was supposed to have been in Tampa, but not for a couple more years. And so now the other big story, too, is that they're starting to say, will Tampa Bay host another Super Bowl? In my opinion, it's got nothing to do with the Bucs. I think Raymond James Stadium, it's a really nice facility. At one point or another, the Bucs are going to have to figure out to get another one. But for the upgrades they made, the TVs, the sound system, when I went originally to, I forgot, I think it's M&T Bank now for the Ravens. But when it first started, it was PiSTONet Stadium, PSI-Net Stadium. Everybody called it PiSTONet Stadium. It was the only stadium that I had been to where it sounded like complete surround sound, no matter where you sat in that stadium. Raymond James, with the upgrade they did, I will say this much, that sound system that had been there for being an open air stadium, it sounds phenomenal. And obviously I was fortunate enough to do some games for USF. And so being in the stands is one thing, But being down in that field, I'm like, wow, man, this sounds like you got a home stereo, hooked up there. And I mean, the audio comes in crispy clear. The TVs, the upgrades they made. I mean, they did some really nice upgrades to Raymond James Stadium, but it's old. And at one point that the mayor, the governor, the guy have to think about, all right, what can we do? And I don't know if you're going to get lucky enough to move it somewhere else unless you go to Ybor City, and that's building up fast. The only bad thing about Raymond James Stadium is it's right across the street from Steinbrenner Field. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just the parking situation. That's a major overhaul. When you go through Del Mabry, it's bad. Game day, it's really, really tough. When you have a Monday night game in Tampa Bay, it's like gridlock down there because it's a major artery that you're going through. So I think that's one thing that the Bucs are probably gonna have to rethink if they decide to do it. And there's been talks that they want to do it, but the one thing I am excited for, of course, on the other side on Major League Baseball is when the Rays finally get their new stadium up, because that thing's gonna be pretty sweet.
Speaking of stadiums, did you see the clip? And I feel bad. The reporter asked Todd Bowles if he had any concerns about the weather in Detroit this weekend for the game. And obviously Detroit's a dome.
Right.
And it's cringeworthy, man. And he kind of just played along, and, people were chastising the reporter, and someone's like, well, it's from a network that used to have 3 people running the sports department. And now it's like, they're sending anchors out there, news guys or news women that maybe are not following sports, but whether it's a female reporter or male reporter, I mean, come on, man. It reminds me years ago, I still believe one of the funniest clips ever is the reporter asking Alshon Jeffrey about the weather in the Super Bowl against New England.
Right.
And just Alshon was just like going along with it. But then after a while, it was like a what the F moment. It's so cringeworthy. Like, it's like a car accident. Like you sit down and I'm listening to it. I'm like, stop. Like, how can you be like so tone deaf and not to realize these stadiums that have domes, or no domes? I mean, it's like, oh my God, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
It is. Although funny, but I guess not funny, is that the one that cracks me up to this day is the reporter who's out during a storm, and all of a sudden the stop sign comes out of nowhere and pretty much knocks her out. And I don't know if you've ever seen that one. That, I felt bad, but it comes out of nowhere. Yeah. And then the memes that came afterwards, it was absolutely hilarious. Well, just like the cat meme. That thing when it first came out, that was
the girl that loves cats?
No,
the girl that loves cats.
Yeah.
Video. So my friend, that's like 20 years old. It seems like that video. When did you ever see when they re-edit it, like almost like a rap version?
Yeah.
Like a techno version. when she starts crying, all you hear is like meow, 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 meow.
Someone's gonna have to look it up in order to kind of get the joke, but there's some classic stuff.
By the way, real quick, I know we got to hit I don't think you're going to be able to hear this, but so apparently McLean asked Fletcher Cox about Sirianni.
Man, he head football coach of this team, man. Come on, man. There ain't even no discussion about that. Okay, you don't think it's gonna happen? I don't got nothing to say about that, man. You're a clown, bro.
Call him a clown. Oh boy, man. Listen. You gotta know if you're in the media and your team just went on a ride, on a roller coaster ride that still hasn't even gone up. It just went straight down.
Some of these guys, bro. I'm sorry, and I know a lot of these guys. Some of them are just arrogant pricks.
Yeah.
Some of these reporters, they're really, and I get it. You're defending the head coach, but I just. It's like when Bryce Harper said, come on, man, that's a clown question.
I mean, to each his own, but to me, I'm sorry. That would be like me just going to New England. So New England, what you guys think about Belichick, right? The 24 great years, this, that. So how do you feel about Mayo? I mean, is he Bill-like? I mean, what's he doing?
Yeah.
apples to oranges. Like, what are you talking about, dude?
I mean, you got to
Belichick's
ask
outta
the
here.
question. You have to ask the question, but it's just funny because there are certain guys that just, if you've covered locker rooms or you've covered these teams, you just know they're just kind of douchey. They're just kind of pricks. They're smug. You have to have a little decorum, right?
Right.
I mean, I remember years ago, I think it was Michael Barrow or maybe Keith Hamilton. I mentioned something about their defense. The Giants played the Saints, and they both looked at me and they're like, what the fuck game were you watching? And I was like, the one in the press box. Like, that was my answer.
That's one of those whoopsie moments.
Yeah.
But there's been, there's been a lot of reporters that have done the same thing. And listen, everybody looks at the game differently, right? We all do. Now, when we're at home, of course, it's a whole different story because we're watching the overview of everything. It's different when you're on the field and you're looking at it through the quarterback's eyes. Like, sure, we can say, man, why'd you throw it to the right? He was wide open. Yeah. Now, the same way the QB may have not caught it in his peripheral, right? But we saw it on TV, so we're going to argue all day long. I don't understand, why this happened. And to this day, I still do it. And then I turn around, I look like a stupid homer. I'm like, come on, genius. Do you really think he saw the same thing you had been seeing? Of course not. It's a whole different story. But I think that's why I like covering the games out on the field because you learn a whole lot more.
Different perspective.
Yeah. And it's a lot of fun, especially when the touchdowns come down on your end where you are. I think it's, and you can't throw your hands up and be like, yeah, you got a touchdown. Nope. Keep your hands to your side, stupid.
Course, no cheering in the press box. One of the great books of the 1960s.
Yeah.
Classic.
It is. All right. When we come back, we'll get into a little bit more here as far as even Caitlin Clark, for some reason, is looking good on the hardwood. But sometimes when that spotlight is on you, it may lead to other things. So doing a great job, though. She just passed a current WNBA player, but passed her record when she was in the college ranks. So we'll get into a little Caitlin Clark talk. And then who knows? Maybe we'll just go just off topic. Maybe I'll even ask Rich some questions about when he first. Matter of fact, I'm going to save that as a teaser. I'll ask Rich a question that he may have been questioned before. So we'll question the questions and we'll give you answers to the questions because there's always answers to questions and questions need to be answered. Like that one? There you go. Leading with that, Martinez Company here on the Tony Bruno Sports Network, 732 and a sweet 50 degrees as it is going to get down to about 39 tonight. So after this, you guys will listen to some nice commercials. Mr. Clean may end up capping it off. And then before you know it, it'll be over. Oh, by the way, just an update as well before I forget. BigSarge, Martinez and Company will be extended, not here on the radio, because obviously we have to make sure that we turn it over to AJ Johnson. But he is coming on at the 8 o'clock hour because he is wrapping up coverage with the Houston Texans. So I want to make sure that he wasn't caught off guard. And so he will be on the 8 o'clock hour. So Martinez Company will continue with BigSarge at 8 o'clock, some bonus time. So if you guys are listening to us on the app, you may want to switch over at 8 p.m. to the social medias so you guys can see. You can also see the show live on broadstsouth.com. Always there on the homepage so you guys can see the Tony Bruno Sports Network. All right. So enjoy the commercials. We'll be right back. Again, Martinez Company here on the Tony Bruno Sports Network.
You know I got a brand.
You're listening to Martinez and Company
That's right.
on the Tony Bruno Sports Network.
Chocolate tea, chocolate flavored Baco is mighty good for me. Mama puts it in my milk for extra energy. Baco gives me iron and sunshine vitamin D. Oh, I love Baco. That's the drink for me.
Yo-ho, yo-ho, brushless or lather, boys, whichever you've the notion.
50 cents for shaving cream, $1 for the lotion.
Old Spice means quality, said the captain to the bosun. So look for the package with the ship that sails the ocean. Yo-ho, yo-ho.
got the time. We've got the beer, Miller beer. Miller tastes too good to hurry through. But when it's time to relax, Miller stands clear, beer after beer. If you've got the time, you've got the time, we've got the beer. Miller.
Mr. Clean gets rid of dirt and grime and grease in just a minute.
Mr. Clean will clean your whole house and everything that's in it.
Floors, doors, walls, halls, white sidewall tires and old golf balls.
Sinks, stoves, bathtubs he'll do. He'll even help clean laundry too.
Mr. Clean gets rid of dirt and grime and grease in just a minute.
Mr. Clean will clean your whole house and everything that's in it.
Can he clean a kitchen sink?
Quicker than a wink.
Can he clean a window sash?
Faster than a flash.
Can he clean a dirty mirror?
He'll make it bright and clear.
Can he clean a diamond ring?
Mr. Clean cleans anything.
Mr. Clean gets rid of dirt and grime and grease in just a minute. Mr. Clean will clean your whole house and everything that's in it. Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Now, back to Martinez and Company
It's always playing in my car.
on the Tony Bruno Sports Network.
First we surely finish last, cause day and night, the lonely stoner seems to free his mind at night. He's all alone through the day and night. The lonely loner seems to free his mind at night, at night, day and night. The lonely stoner seems to free his mind at night. He's all alone, some things will never change. The lonely loner seems to free his mind at night, at night.
Welcome back to the fourth quarter here at Martinez Company. I am Angel Martinez. He is Rich Quinones, live on the Tony Bruno Sports Network Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. right here on the Tony Bruno Sports Network. Don't forget, you guys, to download the apps on the Android and Apple Store. Therefore, you will never miss a show, no matter where you are, whether it be in Kuwait, Saudis, out in Australia, where it's the summertime in Australia, wherever you are. If you guys are going to the Paris-France games here in 2024, you guys can tune in and make sure, again, you don't ever miss out on any of the shows. Also, you can call and or text into the show at 844-644-8669, 844-644-8669. Sean Kilrain says, what's up, guys? Angel with a fresh cut. Yep, got it over the weekend, which is getting my favorite barber down there at the Blade Barbershop in Spring Hill. I make the trip from Tampa to Spring Hill, which is basically if you're going from South Philly to the Northeast to be able to get a haircut. But my guys fly, so I always give him his props here. Also, Sean says, what we really need to do is to say, see you later, Howie. Just like McNabb said, I couldn't agree more with him. Listen, you can kind of blame Howie for this, but there's nothing to convince me to say that Howie Roseman needs to go.
No, he's not going anywhere. He's not, because he also was able to put together the personnel that took him to the Super Bowl last year. You're allowed to have some bad off seasons. Deanna Rossini tweeted out, both Eagles GM Howie Roseman and head coach Nick Sirianni have been reaching out to available NFL coaches and coordinators, as well as coaching agents across the league, to evaluate potential coordinator candidates to join their coaching staff as they plan for 2024. Now, again, read into that all you want. Does that, make you feel more confident that they're inclined to keep Sirianni? If you kind of read between the lines there, it appears so. Look, I just think I just need answers, right? And we're not going to get them until the offseason. That's
Pretty
the
much.
thing. You'll get some veteran guys that'll probably been cut, cap casualties, and the first questions are going to be asked is, what the hell happened? 10-1, you drop 6 of 7, and then you get absolutely torched by Green Bay and Tampa, and don't even show up. You'll get some guys that'll they'll leak it. They'll definitely leak it. But it's just the NFL, man. We see that all the time. Look at the crap going on with the Giants and Brian Daboll, that he's, too high strung and a madman. And Well, look, you had coordinators, you had coaches, and then you had Wink Martindale basically leaking crap on the way out the door. Like, keep that stuff in house, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not sold on the head coach of the Giants just yet. I like his antics, just like I get on Sirianni. But when you win, and they both won last year, you mask that. When you're losing, nobody wants to see or hear, the nonsense, the antics.
Yep. Sean says, well, he does it with puzzle pieces. Why not build it like the Ravens, San Fran? How they draft? You agree or disagree? Again, I think you're talking about two different organizations with two different GMs that know probably a lot more at this point than Howie does. And not mocking anything for Howie, because he's done well in the last two drafts, especially last year. He was able to make some magic happen with the budget that he had. So to kind of compare those, it's kind of tough. But just Howie's going to have to do what, and it goes to Jeffrey Lurie as well as the owner. He's going to have to figure out what's wrong, what needs to be changed. And if he decides to have a conversation with Howie when they're out there in Vietnam, who knows? I mean, there's so many things right now. I think this week they're really going to kind of take a step back, just give it a moment, let everyone just kind of let the season wash away, and then get back at it next week.
But remember too, like, look at the 49ers, who's their GM, John Lynch.
Right.
The guy played at a high level for years. You can argue, Hall of Fame player, right? Ozzie Newsome all those other years with the Ravens, Howie is a numbers guy, right? And we saw Howie almost get jettisoned after Chip Kelly basically told him to go sit back down at the little kids table and go sit in the corner. But they realized that Chip Kelly was smug and arrogant. Chip went, Howie didn't. People were praising Howie last year. People were praising someone who was in the offseason, right? Go get Swift and get Penny, and then to draft these guys and get these guys and Carter and Smith and all this, and bring in other guys. And hey, the move for AJ Brown, they fleeced the Titans. They had a bad stretch that happened at the worst point of their season, which was the last month or two. So again, everyone's to blame. Everyone's to blame from top to bottom. Now you got to clean it up. Now you got to fix it. And you go into an off season, Angel, where you have just a nasty taste in your mouth, knowing that you're looking around. You could have avoided San Fran until the NFC Championship. Dallas gets knocked out, and then you just don't even show up against a team that you shouldn't have beat. So they have no one to blame but themselves.
Yep. Now, switching gears here, because one is that we have to get into Jim Irsay. That's Irsay. We'll get into that little talk. But before that, because we do need to have some kind of like Wednesday funnies, as I told you guys, because my favorite commercial on these vintage commercials was not there. So I'm going to have to make sure that Senor Quinones loads up his app so he'll be able to hear it. Because unfortunately, when I play something back here on YouTube or something else, every once in a while, unless I load it up on the soundboard, my co-host cannot hear it. So if you guys remember, Tequila, the new wonder drug of Mexico, was a very, very funny commercial. So here is said commercial, and let the laughs begin now. So if everybody enjoyed that there, it's just the commercial, it just cracks me up. Sorry. It might be immature or whatever, but I find it funny. Anyways, leading into it, Colts owner Jim Ezra reportedly found unresponsive in home last month due to suspected overdose. Now, this came out just about at lunch today. The Indianapolis Colts Jim Ezra was reportedly found unresponsive in his home in December due to what the police reported called a, quote, suspected overdose. According to records obtained by Max Lewis and Matt Adams of Fox 59 Indianapolis, emergency responders were called to Ezra's residence in Carnal, Indiana at 4:30 a.m. on December 8th to assist with a man who was, quote, unresponsive breathing but turning blue, end quote. In the report, the man was identified as Ezra, who had fallen in the bathroom and been moved to a nearby bed. Quote, Ezra was unconscious with abnormal breathing, agonal breath, a weak pulse, and he was cold to the touch, end quote, the responding officer said in the report via Fox 59. The officer tried to rouse him with a sternum rub, which was unsuccessful. Next, he administered, I don't know why, I just found that funny, but whatever. Next, he administered a dose of Naxolin, which is also known as Narcan, which can help with opiate overdoses, which Ezra had a slight response to. The medics then arrived and took him to the hospital. Ezra had been seen in public once since then at December 16th, the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Colts announced on January 9th that Ezra was receiving medical care for a, again, quote, severe respiratory illnesses, end quote. No drug use was mentioned. Ezra has struggled with drug and alcohol addiction in the past and has been open about it. He told HBO's Real Sports in November that a past drug overdose stopped his breathing and nearly killed him. He also said he's been to rehab 15 times. The Colts released a statement Wednesday morning that wasn't a direct rebuttal to the drug overdose story, but was certainly related. It reinforced Ezra was continuing to recover from a respiratory illness, again, quote unquote, and there will be no further updates on his personal health. Now, according to the NFL and their policies is what? We do not tolerate drugs or alcohol. So if you don't tolerate drugs or alcohol, how do you tolerate an owner that has said in public that he has a problem with it? And so if one of his players comes up and gets busted for something, what kind of actions are you going to take when you haven't taken actions upon yourself? Obviously, rehabs don't work for a lot of people. They just don't. Being honest, they don't work for a whole lot of people. For some people, it does. They go in there for the first time and ta-da, magic. It worked. I'm golden. It didn't. So I'm just wondering, Rich, I mean, you know he has an issue. You know he has a problem. How bad of a look does it look for Indianapolis?
It is a bad look, but he's also the owner of the team, right? He's not firing himself. And I hate to say it, but it is a addiction. It is a disease. And look what transpired in Washington with Daniel Snyder and how long the NFL kind of turned a blind eye to what was going on with the cheerleaders and the toxic culture and female staffers and whatnot and all the other stuff. Same thing could be said right now with Irsay. And you're right. I mean, it almost is hypocritical of the mandate with the league when you have an owner that's dealing with this. But what'll happen is now people come out, hope he gets help, this, that, the other thing. I watched that interview that he did on HBO Real Sports. I mean, I hate to say it. I have to go back, and I think Andrea Kramer did it. But he looked drunk, impaired during that segment. I mean, when you're dealing with addiction like that, isn't an everyday battle, man. That's why they say day by day. And then who knows? He could have had a trigger. Something could have happened, right? They call them triggers. And then he just goes on a bender, binge, what have you. But he's 74, 75. I mean, the health is deteriorating. It's very unfortunate. But again, you know, you're right. Is the NFL going to sit there and step in? What are you going to do? You're going to try to force them to sell the team? I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe that's going to happen. But he's dealt with a lot of stuff, not only the addiction. I think mental illness ran rampant in his family as well. But it does open up that conversation, the hypocrisy of the league and how they should handle players, and then outside the field, head coaches, GMs, owners.
Yep. That's why the only reason why I brought it up, because again, if you keep enforcing said rule, then that's what you need to do.
Yeah. It's a good point. It's a real good point.
So yeah, I just got to look. My producer just walked in and said somebody didn't show up, but I don't know. I must have missed something. She said to forget about it and walk back in the studio B. So if you guys are listening, we have about 4 minutes and change here left on the digital airwaves here, the Tony Bruno Sports Network. The Martinez Company will continue into the bonus hour number 3 on over on the social medias, because joining us will be BigSarge, again, who covers the Houston Astros, the Rockets, and the Texans. And because he was wrapping up practice with the Texans, I wanted to make sure that if we had him on, I didn't want him to feel like he needed to be distracted while he was driving. I'd rather have him safe and home or at the studio, wherever he may be. Therefore, he's not distracted by anything else and can focus upon just being safe, more importantly. Not worried about as much the interview, it's just being safe. He's been my longtime brother for a good while, and he's family, and I want to make sure, as always, that he's always doing well. So he will be with us in the 8 o'clock hour. So, of course, the show will end here because A.J. Johnson and Bleacher Brothers will start right at 8 o'clock. But if you guys are listening in on the app, you can go over to broadstsouth.com, even on Tony Bruno Sports Network Facebook page, and the show's being broadcasted there as well, over on YouTube, so you guys can continue on listening into the show during some bonus time. But kind of real quick here, Caitlin Clark, who's doing some amazing things, Rich. I mean, obviously she's going to be, I would think, the number 1 pick in the for the WNBA, and truthfully is probably going to be one of the league ambassadors of the young up-and-coming crew that's coming out of college. But she is pointing, I mean, just the numbers are absolutely insane, and had just passed Brittany Griner for number 4 on the NCAA scoring list. And I mean, she's not even done yet. Neither is a season. Who says she can hit number 1 by the time the season's over?
She's a great player, man. I loved watching her last year during the tournament. I mean, she runs the floor well. She's smart. She can shoot. She's a leader. But again, man, I remember being on the air in Delaware for years, and Elena Deladon, right? She took everyone by storm, and she's had a wonderful Hall of Fame career. The Candace Parkers of the world. I mean, we've seen it, but she is a phenomenal player, man. She's like, just like I don't want to say the male version, but her game is almost reminiscent of like Steph Curry. She can knock it down anywhere on the floor, man. She's a prolific scorer, and she carries herself the right way too. She does.
No, good points. Good valid points. So I'm interested to see who she'll land with come hold on, because the draft already happened for the WNBA.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, then again, there could be a trade. You never know. It could happen. But the WNBA is, I just think it's not promoted enough, unfortunately, especially like right now. We understand it's the off season, but you could be doing a lot more to be able to promote it, market it, do better. I don't know if their budget is just slim or they just don't have the right people out there marketing the product, because when the NBA season is over, obviously it's a short WNBA season, but it doesn't mean you can't be constantly pushing out there like, oh, season's over, no worries, it's coming up. I mean, you got the UFL being able to do it. So it just, in my little humble opinion, and by the way, also TCU is having open tryouts because they had a forfeit the last game due to injuries. That's pretty sad.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good at all.
It's when you have open tryouts because your team is just, it's bad. Injuries are one thing, but when almost 90% of your team is injured, you have to have open tryouts to save your season. Never, ever, ever a good thing. So, my heart goes out to them because it's the toughest thing in the world. And apparently also, well, maybe we'll get into it after when we get into some bonus time here, because apparently for Ron Rivera, he's not done in the NFL. He's had several opportunities that are coming his way. So maybe we could talk about it here after we get into some bonus time. But once again, thank you all who tuned in here tonight. Don't forget, we will be doing some bonus time. So you will not hear us here on the radio because we're turning it over to AJ Johnson and the Bleacher Brothers. They're coming on right here at 8 o'clock. But don't forget, starting off the morning, Thursday morning, Pete Shepard with the Pete Shepard Show from 7 to 10 a.m. Pete always doing a fantastic job all by his lonesome in the morning here on the Tony Bruno Sports Network, followed by Defo and Luby from 10 to 12. Then the best of between 12 and 1, because the newest show in the lineup, LFG with Jim Cozumore, Dave Benz, Matt Fowler, and Jess Taylor is on from 1 to 3. Then Tony and Miss Robin are on the Tony Bruno Show from 3 to 6 p.m. Myself and Rich Quinones here from 6 to 8. And as I just said, AJ Johnson and the Bleacher Brothers. So thank you all for tuning in here tonight on Martinez Company on the Tony Bruno Sports Network. And as we always say, don't drink and drive, arrive alive. And we hope to talk to you tomorrow night. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You're listening to Tony Bruno Sports Network. Tony didn't invent sports radio, he perfected it.
AJ Johnson and crew should have a good show here tonight. And I'm just getting word now, confirmation with BigSarge. He's about to jump on here with us shortly. It's always a great time with BigSarge, so I'm excited to talk to him. It's been a while since him and I have spoken. Should be a good time to talk to him. Yep. So we will have here BigSarge coming up here shortly. My compadre is going to take a little break here for a moment, so we'll get BigSarge here in just a second. And by the way, for those who are still, again, tuning in, you guys can obviously watch the show here still on the Tony Bruno Sports Network, also on broadstsouth.com. The show will also come up on the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game app. If you guys do not have that app as well, you can go ahead and download it. Therefore, you can hear the shows that run on my network on Broad Street South, the division of Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. So BigSarge will come on again. He covers the Houston Texans, the Houston Rockets, and the Houston Astros. And he had a lot of fun last year, especially the year before when he was covering the Astros. So BigSarge should be joining us here momentarily. Also on my network, normally on Wednesday nights from 6 to 8 p.m., you also had the guys from Edge of Philly Sports. But then again, I should have thought about it. They may have been off tonight because of the passing of one of their members who had a young guy and passed away way too soon. So again, you guys got to enjoy life as much as you possibly can, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. As I say that over and over again, you're not guaranteed tomorrow, so you want to make sure you enjoy life as much as you possibly can. So we're just waiting here for BigSarge to come on. I am losing my voice because I start my day at 3:30 in the morning. So if I sound a little raspy, I apologize, because it's a long day. So you got to keep the voice kind of tenderized, and that's why I end up taking the honey tea there at during this time. By the way, the live broadcast also over on LinkedIn. If you guys were watching over LinkedIn, it has ended over on LinkedIn because it's only scheduled for 2 hours over on LinkedIn. So if you guys missed it over there, again, no worries. Just keep it right here as we go into some bonus time. And I may have some breaking news as we're talking here. Give me 1 second as I look this up. There is. Wow. Okay. So Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy to return for the 2024 NFL season. The Cowboys' impressive 23 regular season ended unceremoniously in all too familiar fashion, with the team lost at home to the Packers much earlier into the playoffs than expected. Despite many fans and pundits claiming they've seen enough of head coach Mike McCarthy in Dallas, Adam Schefter of ESPN reports that the fourth-year Cowboys coach will return for 2024. So that is some breaking news if you guys are tuning in. Lloyd, of course, the insider football tells me that Jerry has to have control, and McCarthy, let's see, crazy thing they're bringing Jerry back. That is absolute truth. That it is nuts. So let me make sure I take care of him. As again, we are just waiting for BigSarge to come in, because again, he was covering the Texans, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. CJ Stroud. Also talk about D'Amico Ryans and the job that he has done with the Houston Texans. So it's a lot to get into here tonight with some bonus time. So let me get this fired up here on this side while I still have you guys on here with me with Martinez Company bonus show for those who are hanging in. So we're getting everything reset. Something happened here, so give me caps locked. So, BigSarge, again, join us here shortly. Let me fire this thing up and see if it actually fires up. Nope. Someone will still be on the other side. So, also, something that was, we talked about Jason Kelce staying active, I guess, for the most part, for the moment. He is staying active. And we might be getting BigSarge here in a second. It is BigSarge. What's happening, BigSarge? I sure can, loud and clear. Listen, first of all, I'm going to tell you this much. As your brother, I am completely jealous of your hat ensemble because every hat that you get, man, it gets one better than the other. Where do you get them from in the first place? Right? Can't hear him?
It's best $20 investment ever.
Goodness gracious. Well, all I know is that every time I see you, it's always is something fly all the time. You are probably the only guy. Has anyone ever approached you? I'll say this much. Has anyone ever approached you and said you should be it may sound funny, but like a hat model?
Oh man, listen. However much that pays, I'm here for it. I am here for it.
All right, we might have to find you some sponsors, but joining us tonight here in the extended version of Martinez Company here on the Tony Bruno Sports Network, now, of course, over on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. It is BigSarge from BigSarge Sports. Haven't talked to BigSarge in a while. Miss him. I had the opportunity to be with him. Man, I can't believe it's already been 2 years since I went up to the iHeart Studios. It went by that quick.
Yeah, been a while, man. I'm glad to see you again. Thank you for, extending this invitation to me and allowing me to come on your show. I promise you I won't do you like Fletcher Cox did the reporter today. I promise you I won't do you like that. We're friends,
Yes.
and hopefully it'll stay that way. I just seen another video where they were on Zoom and he was trying to ask, the reporter was trying to ask Fletcher Cox a question and he just wouldn't answer, and he thought it was something wrong with the Zoom, and really just he wasn't answering. So I promise to answer your questions tonight.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. If you guys have not seen it and or heard of BigSarge, you guys should. The man has grown, to me, what I consider the small empire. As you have, BigSarge, like you are all over the place. And I don't mean that like sometimes you'll hear somebody say, man, you're all over the place. And it's in a good way because following your career, as you just kept like just nudging your way in to certain circles. Now you're with the Houston Rockets, with the Houston Astros, and I'll get into that one here shortly. But then covering the Houston Texans and Debbie and I, when we were down there, of course, we went out to Reliance Stadium. We weren't fortunate enough to go inside, but we went outside. I can only imagine covering the Houston Texans the way you have, and especially now come this year, where we didn't think. I mean, we heard about the rebuild, D'Amico Ryans being the new head coach, C.J. Stroud coming in. There was all kinds of stuff going on during the preseason. Good stuff. I mean, not bad, obviously. But the dramatic turnaround that this team has done, if you looked into a crystal ball, I know it's an old saying, and you go back and you look at their preseason, did you see this right now, this season, how it's happened between C.J. and D'Amico Ryans?
No, I did not. And I will say this. I was here covering the team when they drafted Deshaun Watson. And what C.J. Stroud is doing in his rookie year is what they thought Deshaun Watson's career would be. And I mean, in just this short time that he's been here, he has changed the trajectory of this franchise all around. I'm going to be honest with you. When I first started talking about the Houston Texans after the draft, I never predicted that they would be playing in the AFC divisional game. What I said was they had won a combined 11 games in the last 3 seasons. And at the end of last season, they had to win 2 in a row just to get to 3 wins. And so I did not see them, where they are right now. What I had them winning was 6 or 7 games. I said I could see, looking at their schedule, I could see 6 games. And then I can say they can sneak in 1. Well, I'll put it like this. You played Space before. It's like 5 and 2 possible. So I was like, they got 5 wins for sure. Then those 2 possibles, that Jack of Spades might walk, and that Queen of Hearts, it may walk. You may get it to walk. And so I did not see that. So I had 7 at best, 5 at worst, only because I knew the person DeMeco Ryans was. I knew what everybody has said about him, and our good friend who, former NFL player for the Texans, the Commanders, and the Eagles, who also played with DeMeco Ryans, Indy Kalu, said that when they hired DeMeco, he said this whole franchise is going to be turned around. He said immediately. He said that is a guy who I've never seen outworked before. And remember now, him and J.J. Watt were teammates. Mm-hmm. And J.J. Watt works hard. And he said DeMeco Ryans is one of those guys where you're not going to outwork him, and he's very, very, very smart. When I was doing an article on him when he first got hired, I went back and, DeMeco was an honor roll student in high school and in college. And so his athleticism goes hand in hand with the way that he thinks. He is a very high-level thinker. So you put that high-level thinker in DeMeco Ryans and combine that with C.J. Stroud, who can place the ball anywhere on the field. That's 1. Can make all the throws. That's 2. And has the confidence in himself to believe that he can make all the throws and that he wills a lot of what the Houston Texans does. It's like when he's on the field, he's just like, yo, we need this play. Okay, I'm going to will it. Week 18, that last offensive drive, the real offensive drive, not when they were, taking a knee after getting the ball back, but the last offensive drive that they had, multiple times they were down 1st and 20, 2nd and 14. The pass that he made to Nico Collins on the sideline where everybody thought he was throwing the ball away and Nico came and caught the ball, that was on 2nd and 14. During that drive, they had another 2nd and 13, and they just kept overcoming that adversity, and they scored and won the game. And so he's one of those guys that everybody in that locker room believes that as long as CJ is on the field, they have a chance to win. Jonathan Grenard, 4th-year defensive end for the Houston Texans, said, hey, look, as long as 7 is in the game, I have the utmost confidence that we're going to win. And he said that after week 1 when they lost to the team that they're playing this weekend in the Baltimore Ravens. So they go hand in hand. What do they say, like hand in the glove? Is that that's the saying? Uh-huh. DeMeco Ryans and C.J. Stroud go together like that. And for as long as those 2 are together, the Houston Texans franchise should be very, very good.
I think so, because again, I'm to be completely honest, I did not expect this. I'm pretty sure a lot of fans didn't expect it. I mean, for the Texans fans, I obviously anything was going to be an improvement. Not taking anything away from the former head coach, but it's just you can see it. There was some sort of something had to do a good explosion for the fan base to be like, you know what? Okay, we believe in this. But truthfully, BigSarge, I mean, it caught me completely off guard because we heard a lot about C.J. Stroud. It's different when you're when you're in college, you're coming into the NFL, certain expectations like we saw with Bryce Young. Thankfully, Carolina passed up on him because the Texans definitely made out on the better of the 2. But I think Bryce Young too, he was thrown to wolves out there at Carolina. Carolina right now, kind of organizational mess, but I think with the right QB coach, Bryce Young can end up having a bounce back for sure. But it's just a quick hello to my cuz. What's going on? cuz out there in Springfield, Mass, an Eagles fan, Big Sarge, just like myself, but yeah, representing out there in Massachusetts and New England. But no, listen, it's just CJ Stroud and how he carries himself. Because to me, yeah, the kid is good. You're absolutely right. The way he carries himself and the way that he is, Big Sarge, you would think he was like a seasoned veteran because he doesn't show a ton of emotions, but he knows when his game is good. You can kind of see it in those like small little smirks that he does when he knows he's got a good game. But the surprising impact that he's had this year for where the Texans are at this point, because they did go through a little bit of a streak on the not so good side. Then you had the concussion protocol when it came to CJ. But it seems like that was just a bounce back from there. D'Amico Ryans, which it seems like from the outside, as us here, just broadcasting all the time, is to be able to see that he is well loved, well received by his team. I think those guys probably spend more time with him than with their former head coach. And again, nothing about your former coach. But my thing is that this team, how this organization end up putting everything together, getting CJ out of that pick. I mean, you don't have to replace somebody else. I'm hoping the kid stays healthy. More important throughout the playoffs. Would I love to see him at the AFC Championship game? I would, because again, a combo like this doesn't come that often. Yet alone, and saying it correctly here, you don't have many black managers, many black head coaches, many black athletes with a combined combination of CJ and D'Amico making history at this point, just, running with the ball literally to get to where they are. So the feel now, the playoff atmosphere, obviously with the Astros, I got a thing to say about that. But, with the Astros, listen, well loved, well received. Obviously with Dusty Baker, and I'll get with that as well, because that had to be phenomenal the first time you were able to talk to him. But how is this fan base feeling right now between these two young men, and how far do they believe that the Texans can get themselves here in the divisional playoffs?
One thing that I always make sure that I try to do at least once a week is get a fan feeling question in to either D'Amico or to CJ, because this fan base has been through a lot the last 3 seasons. When with the amount, like I said earlier, 11 combined wins in 3 seasons. They had to go through Bill O'Brien being fired. They had to go through Deshaun Watson and his legal issues and his unwillingness to play for the team for an entire year. Then they had to go through David Culley. They had to go through Lovie Smith, who was hired at the last minute, who really wasn't supposed to be the head coach for the Houston Texans. And so this fan base has been through a lot, on top of the fact that they had to hear the rumblings of, the ownership being racist because they fired 2 African-American coaches after 1 year. And side note, let me just say this real quickly. They weren't racist. They did not fire the coaches because they were black. They fired the coaches because they were only supposed to be a stopgap until they got to a coach like D'Amico Ryans. So whoever was the head coach of the Houston Texans, where he's, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever his, the ethnic makeup of the coach would have been, they were only going to be in that position 1, maybe 2 years. And so the organization had to totally rebuild themselves. And what they did was they went out and they got a head coach in D'Amico Ryans who wants to be here. See, when you have it's reciprocity, Angel. That's what it is. It's reciprocity.
Right.
Houston Texans took a chance and they drafted D'Amico Ryans into the NFL. They took that chance on him and drafted him onto the Houston Texans. Fast forward to D'Amico Ryans becomes one of the hottest one of the hottest coordinators out there when he was with the San Francisco 49ers. And it's just, hey, he wanted to come home. He calls Houston home. He wanted to come back here. And I don't know if you've seen that viral clip of him and J.J. Watt talking. And it was like J.J. Watt's last game, somewhere near his last game. And he told D'Amico, hey, go make Houston great again. And so I asked D'Amico about that this week, and he said, I don't know if I'm making Houston great again per se, but I'm just glad that the fans are able to wear their gear with pride. I'm glad that I can go out to the restaurants and to the stores and to different places that I frequent and see people wearing their Houston Texans gear with pride again. People out, not only giving me accolades, giving me praises, but also the players. He said to have these players, especially the ones who have been here through the adversity of the last 2 or 3 seasons, those players are finally getting their just due. Two quick players I'm going to talk about just real quickly. Jonathan Grenard had to go through this. He had health issues, so it was, he wasn't on the field as much last season, but he went through that adversity. He's been here 4 years. And Nico Collins, he's been here the last 2 or 3 years, and he's had to go through that adversity. He has some health issues as well, but he's been here through the bad times. I mentioned those 2 players because outside of CJ, outside of Will Anderson Jr., the 2 people that you want to, and Laramie Tunsil, the 2 other people you want to talk about is Jonathan Grenard, who leads the team with 12.5 sacks, and he got hurt. He would have had more if he hadn't gotten hurt with the high ankle sprain. And then Nico Collins, who was close to, I think, almost 1,400 yards receiving this year, and he missed 2 games. And so that D'Amico Ryans effect and the way that he's been able to turn this team around and put players in position and hire the right people like offense coordinator Bobby Slowick, like defense coordinator Matt Burke, put these guys in position, special teams coach Frank Ross, he retained, put these guys in position to make these players better. Making those players better is what has this fan base re-energized and revitalized, and the city of Houston is jumping right now. For them to be playing in the second week of January like this, like the fan base almost doesn't know what to do. They're like, wait a minute, ain't we supposed to be getting ready for like a head coach being fired, or aren't we supposed to be getting ready to hear general manager Nick Caserio, talk about the off season and going into the draft and things like that? We're supposed to be getting ready for that. That's what we're used to. But we're playing meaningful football this week.
Right. No, and you're right, because again, I didn't see Cuz have a blessed night as well. I do appreciate it, and he's disappointed in Eagles. So is the rest of us here. As he said earlier, he was about to kick crap out of Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts kicked crap out of himself, honestly, because listen. It's a whole different story for a whole different day.
But he's been playing hurt for a very long time. But you know what though? I got this saying. Like, if you're injured, then don't go on the field, because as soon as you go on the field, you open yourself up to criticism. As soon as you step on that field, the injury excuse can no longer be used, even though we know that he was injured. And I hate to see that, especially because, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. I do not like the Eagles, not one bit, but I love me some Jalen Hurts, only because he's from Houston. And I have a connection with him because his uncle is my frat brother from Prairie View A&M University. We're both alphas. And so, his uncle actually brought me into the fraternity. So that's that close bond that I always have with Jalen. We talked about it when they came to play the Texans last year. So I root for him, but I hope the Eagles lose every game.
Don't feel bad, because as my cousin says, I'm so upset with seeing Sarge with the Cowboy hat, because as you just mentioned it, the flashback of the Cowboys. So for those who don't know, Big Sarge is a big Cowboys fan. He's been with us many a times over in Broad Street South, and we've had a ton of fun with that, especially when it led up to Cowboys Week, which next season, and I know you're super busy, don't get me wrong, and I appreciate the time with us tonight, but that's the other thing, Big Sarge, and before we get more into the Texas talk here, but so now there was breaking news that they're going to bring back McCarthy, so they're bringing him back.
Can I give you some breaking news?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, and I will tell you, actually, I'll tell you exactly what it was. Let me go back to the person that broke it to me. It said that the Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy returned for the 2024 NFL season. This was at 6:55 this evening. The Cowboys' impressive 2023 regular season ended unceremoniously in all too familiar fashion when the team lost at home to the Packers much earlier into the playoffs than expected. Despite many fans and pundits claiming that they've seen enough of head coach Mike McCarthy in Dallas, Adam Schefter of ESPN reports that the fourth-year Cowboys coach will return for the 2024 season.
So let me give you some breaking news, right?
Sure.
There's a couple of things. I'm going to always be a Dallas Cowboy fan to the heart. I will never ever change my fandom. But what I will do in certain situations is put my fandom on hold, meaning that I'm not going to root for the Cowboys. When I put my fandom on hold, the last time I was this close to putting my fandom on hold is when they cut T.O. I had a radio show at the time I went on, and for the whole 4 hours, all I did was blasted the Dallas Cowboys and the mistake that they made by letting go of T.O. Then when they let go of Dez Bryant, I was this close. I'm telling you right now, it's that I'm going to sleep on it because I got that news right before we came on air. One of my colleagues sent it to me, and I said, there's a couple of things that would make me put my fandom on hold. One, if they'd have hired Bill Belichick. I did not want Bill Belichick as the Dallas Cowboys head coach. Two, if they resign Dak, if they extend Dak and give him $60 million a year, I can't do it. And three, if they brought back Mike McCarthy. Let me tell you something real quick, Angel. I was in the stadium. My wife is a Green Bay Packers fan. And so for my birthday, we were supposed to be in Seattle, but because the Texans made the playoffs, I had to be here Saturday. And so I said, okay, so what we'll do is, you're a Packers fan, I'm a Cowboys fan, we'll go to the game on Sunday. When I tell you that inside of Jerry's world, after they went down 14-0, I could have screamed out, I'm about to run around naked. Everybody in that stadium, outside of Packers fans, would have heard it. It was so quiet in there. And I just looked at that. I just looked at the team and I said, one, this falls back on the head coach who doesn't have his team prepared. Two, Dan Quinn took a mighty fine time to say, yeah, I don't think I want this job anymore. And three, Dak Prescott looked like playoff Dak. And he was like, here we go. Okay, here we go. I looked at him. So I am not happy with the news that they're going to bring back Mike McCarthy because it just puts me in the mindset of, here we go with Jason Garrett all over again.
Yep. You're absolutely right. And that's the way. I didn't think again, not a fan of the Cowboys, but I think with Jerry Jones, he should have not brought back Mike McCarthy. When you do and you repeat the same thing over and over again, and I even listen, I play around a lot. You know it more than anybody else. When it comes to Green Bay, the last two seasons, and this year being on the Tony Bruno Sports Network, it was one of those things that I said, Dallas, you have the opportunity, which they did. They looked like they were going to represent the NFC, and I expected them and San Fran to be able to see each other in the NFC Championship game because of the way Dallas had finished up the season, how strong they finished up. But last week I did say that Green Bay is their daddy. But I said it when Aaron Rodgers was there. Now, with Jordan Love, it's different. First time the kid's going to be playing in the playoffs. Boy, was I right with Green Bay being their daddy once again for the third year in a row. And I was, and you know this because we had talked about it when we were over on Broad Street South, was I had said to pay the man, meaning Dak, because he deserved it at the time. He was playing well, well-deserved a contract he had. He's coming up on his last year of his contract. But playoff Dak just doesn't get the job done. So the question that I had earlier on my show was, if you bring McCarthy back, do then you bring back Dak because he's in his final year of his contract? But if you do you then draft now a young quarterback to take place of Dak? Because at this point, I don't understand how the Cowboys fans aren't really fed up with Dak Prescott, because that performance and what I expected and what everyone expected out of Dallas, fell short of any expectation.
Well, Angel, it's a lot of blaming the defense. And don't get me wrong, the defense has, they have to take the brunt of it. But if you look at it, I've been saying this. I've been saying this for all week. especially going back and forth with people on social media and to a couple of my colleagues. Yes, the Dallas Cowboys defense played bad. They got down 14 points, right? They gave up 14 points right off the rip. If you are this so-called MVP caliber quarterback this season, what you do is you play well enough, you play good enough, you get the offense going, you score until your defense can get it together. I watched on Saturday night, the Houston Texans were down 14-10, and it looked like, and this is, when they went down 14-10, they had given up back-to-back 40-yard plus plays on two offensive scoring drives to Joe Flacco and the Cleveland Browns. They gave up a 45-yard pass, and then they gave up on the first scoring drive. Then they gave up a 47-yard pass on the second scoring drive. And after both of those drives, you know what happened? C.J. Stroud came in the game and got the points right back. So C.J. kept them in the game. C.J. kept them in the game until the defense was able to get it together. And then after that, the Texans outscored the Cleveland Browns 35-0. Remember, the final score was 45-14. At one point, the Texans were down 14-10. And so I'm looking at a so-called rookie quarterback do what he needs to do to keep his team afloat until the defense can get it together, and then both of them start clicking, and they do that. Dak, who is the veteran, they go down 14 points. He doesn't do anything on the two offensive drives that they have. Then he comes down and he throws an interception and puts them behind the 8 ball again, brings that defense right back onto the field. And they gave up 7 points. But even let's just say they don't give up 7. They still give up 3 because where the interception was thrown, Dak put the Green Bay Packers right in field goal range. And then you come right back and you throw a pick 6. So the 14 points that the defense has given up, 14, we can say 21, Dak gives up another 6. So now when they go into the half, 27, I think it was 27-7, because they scored a touchdown on the last play of the first half, and that was luck. Come back in the second half, you're thinking you are MVP caliber quarterback. They have sung your praises all year long, and you still can't get it done. And so that's why I can't believe in Dak Prescott anymore. This is the first year in a very long time that even though the Cowboys were 12-5, I didn't do a lot of talking about them on social media. I didn't do a lot of bragging on them on social media because I could just see it. It was just setting itself up for a big letdown. So I don't believe in Dak Prescott. What I seen from Dak Prescott on Sunday is what I seen from Dak Prescott on Sunday is what I've been seeing from him since his rookie year. In the playoffs, he gets inefficient, and then he gets inaccurate, especially against good teams. So when he's playing against good teams, and a lot of people didn't believe in Green Bay, but like I said, I'm married to a diehard Green Bay Packers fan who can tell you their roster, who loves them so much that, when they opened up to buy shares, and so she's like she's a 0.0000001 owner of the Green Bay Packers, watches them to a T, and I'm saying to myself, this team isn't bad, and I believe in Jordan Love. And so, anyway, as I digress, I just can't do it with watching Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott try to run it back. This is Jason Garrett, Tony Romo all over.
Yep, it is. So now I'm gonna get to for those who are tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. The bonus coverage of Martinez Company here on the Tony Bruno Sports Network. Of course, you guys are listening to it on Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game on my side of the house here on my radio station. I appreciate everybody who's tuning in, and I'll tell you the story of how BigSarge and I end up meeting in a moment. But I'm going to ask a $1 million question to you, BigSarge.
Okay.
Now, let's just say if the Texans make it to the Super Bowl. Now, again, you're a Cowboys fan. Let's just say the Texans win the Super Bowl, and just to put the cherry on top, because you cover the Texans, they hand you a Super Bowl ring. Not the the ones that people get as a copy. the authentic one with your name engraved in it, do you then switch alliances and become a Texans fan? And a Texans, no?
There's not another team in this. There's not another team in the NFL that I would root for outside of the Dallas Cowboys, unless like it has to be some real salacious, some malicious stuff that comes out of, like it has to be worse than that picture we seen of Jerry when he was in high school. Like if I see like 2 or 3 more instances of that, then I would probably say, you know what? I'm done with the Cowboys. I'm finished. And this is the only team I've ever rooted for. I was born in 1972. In 1975, I actually knew that I was a Dallas Cowboys. At 3 years old, I was like, hey, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan because that's all I ever seen. So that's the only I've only ever watched, Danny White, Tony Dorsett,
Right.
Robert Newhouse. Nobody really remembers that he was the fullback. Nobody really remembers that Danny White was the quarterback and the punter. I've seen Ed Too Tall Jones. I watched the Super Bowl years. I know who Drew Pearson is. I know who Everson Walls is. I know I've watched this team. I know who Charlie Waters is. This is my team since 1975, and I'm not gonna just switch my alliance, my alliance and my allegiance to the Dallas Cowboys just because I'm fed up with Jerry Jones. So there isn't a lot. And don't get me wrong, the Texans are on an upward. They're on an upward trajectory, and being able to see what they're doing, being able to talk to C.J. Stroud on a consistent basis. That is first, like I said, he's a great kid. What the Texans went out and done. They went out and they went out and they drafted 2 very good, well-grounded young men. I know both. I know CJ's mother and his sister and his brother and I know his support system. I know Will Anderson Jr. I know Will Anderson Sr. I know his mom. I know his sister. I've played with his nieces running around in the store while Will was doing a promo, one of these promo things as I was waiting to talk to him. Like the Texans went out and they solidified and built a foundation with, like I said earlier, D'Amico, CJ, and Will. They will be an easy team to root for. They will be an easy team, but if I ain't root for them during the bad times, then I ain't finna jump on the bandwagon in the good times. And outside of if I had to pick another team, because I am so close to this team and I know what they've been through, and I know a lot of those players in there, how good of people they are outside of just players, like it would be so easy to root for the Texans. So it'll probably either be the Texans or the Ravens, because I love me some Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is exciting.
He is something else, man. He's got to be the MVP. There's no way in the world. He has to be the MVP. And CJ Stroud, obviously the Rookie of the Year. Yes. I mean, hands down. There's no way. And if he gets passed over, oh man, I would hate to be a reporter in the room when they make that announcement. They say he got passed over, comes up number 2. There's no way in the world you can't say he's that Rookie of the Year.
I would hate to be the rest of the NFL next season. I would hate to be the opponents that have to face him if he's not offensive Rookie of the Year, because he's going to look at what we've seen because this is something that CJ has always had to fight through in his life. Them not seeing him being the best. Now remember, when he was coming out of high school, it was Bryce Young was number 1. I can't pronounce the young man's last name, but it's DJ Yuga. I don't want to butcher his name, but the young man who came after Trevor Lawrence at Clemson.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, the young man that's in his 6th year and just transferred to another college.
Yeah.
So it was Bryce Young, it was DJ, and CJ was number 3 coming out of high school. When CJ got to Ohio State, he had to fight, and I mean all the way through spring training, before he was named starter. Like right before a week or two before he was named starter. He was runner-up in the Heisman voting twice. He's a 2-time Heisman finalist, runner-up. He was drafted number 2 behind Bryce Young again. So, and these are things that CJ does not forget. Oh, he was also passed over for the Pro Bowl this year and didn't even get any type of consideration for All-Pro. CJ chronicles these things in the back of his mind and he remembers them. And it just fuels him more and more and more and say, okay, if you don't want to give it to me, I'm going to go and take it. You can watch. No matter if you're going to give me this award, I am going to put so much pressure on you by my play that you're going to have to sit back and just look and say, excuse my vernacular, but damn, I was wrong. And so that's exactly, all the naysayers that have doubted him throughout his entire career, all he's ever done was prove them wrong.
I just this kid, it's rare. I mean, you look at obviously Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, and look what he's done for San Fran. But C.J. Stroud, I mean, the only thing I don't want to hear too early, because we hear this, I think, in some of these young players' careers, when they start talking about contract extensions, how much money, this and that, just let him ride with what he has right now. Let him enjoy this ride for this year to see where this goes. Because, again, I'm pretty sure the Texans fans have got to be, like you said earlier, they got to be beside themselves after just struggle after struggle, scratching their heads, selling out, figuring out what's going to end up happening here. But, again, it's great to see what the Texans have done with this organization, especially with DeMeco Ryans, give him that platform to be able to become that head coach at a young man's age. And who knows where DeMeco can take this team going forward. If this is year 1, I'm excited to see what's going to happen in year 2, because it can only get better. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. And I tell you this, we've given a lot of praise to those young men you just mentioned, but we cannot say how great this organization has become this season without giving the proper respect to General Manager Nick Caserio. Because it was Nick Caserio who people thought he was going to get run out of town, after last season, after watching that debacle that they did last season. And all he did was go out and, along with the McNairs, brought in DeMeco. Then he drafted CJ. And then he gave up draft capital to draft Will Anderson Jr. Then he went out and he got the right free agents to come in and to buy into this team. He worked with DeMeco Ryans hand in hand and said, what do you need? These are two football minds working together to make this team better. You look at a player and you got to give Nick his credit for this and DeMeco, but you look at a player like defensive tackle Khalil Davis, who was not anywhere. I mean, he played in the U.S. He made a couple of rosters, but he was cut. And then he went and he played in the USFL. The Houston Texans gave him a chance. DeMeco loved what he seen in him. Nick loved what he seen in him. And now he's a intricate part of that defensive rotation, that defensive line rotation. You look at a guy like Sheldon Rankins, who said that I came to Houston. I chose Houston because I wanted to play for DeMeco Ryans, and I knew after they drafted what they had. Shaq Mason is here. George Fant is here. You look at what Nick did the year prior in drafting Derek Stingley Jr., who should have been an All-Pro as well. He went out and he got veterans like Robert Woods and Noah Brown and Dalton Schultz. And so, like I said, when you look at these players and look at what they've done and look at he drafted, Juice Scruggs, who is a natural center, but has been playing left guard next to Laramie Tunsil, which, by the way, Nick extended Laramie Tunsil, in the offseason. And so, like I said, for as many accolades as we're going to heap upon CJ Will and D'Amico, you have to give those same accolades and throw those same praises towards General Manager Nick Caserio as well.
Yeah, you do. It's just, again, I'm very impressed with what the Texans have done. You talk about a turnaround of biblical proportions. I mean, it's amazing to me what they've done. So again, being on the outsider, watching what they do, and for those who don't know, I mean, years ago when the Texans came out, when of course fantasy football, I mean, it's beyond exploded at this point. But at the time when the Texans came out, I was the last guy to be picked, and he said, "All right, Angel, you're stuck with the Texans." Like, okay, that's fine. And I followed them ever since. So it's been pretty much like that Cinderella story with the Texans coming around. I even have the shirt first year coming out for the Texans still here in the house, and that's how much I end up following them. But I mean, people say you have two teams. In the NFL, you have your NFC team, your AFC team, and the Texans. To me, they've always been close to heart because I've seen what this team has done, the struggles, what they've done, how they treat people. I mean, it's a whole different feel. And for the other story I want to share with people as well, which it's crazy to think it's already been 4 years. So BigSarge, one day I came across Sports Talk 790, the app on iHeartRadio. I was actually going to flip to another station in Philly, and I heard at the time Sean Salisbury was on. And he was getting ready to sign off. So then I heard Andy Kalu, of course, legend, in my opinion, with the Eagles. I want to talk about the other team that he got traded off to, but, with the Eagles. Became also a really good friend. But BigSarge was talking about the Cowboys and Eagles, ironically, that week as things were playing out. And it's funny because all I did was send a simple message back on Twitter to Andy Kalu, and he read it on the air. And then I started calling in and ended up having fun, with both BigSarge and Andy Kalu. Well, fast forward 2 years later, we ended up taking a trip, which has been 2 years now at this point, out to Houston. And we stayed in San Antonio. And I can't believe, BigSarge, how much that area has grown. Yeah. The last time I had seen San Antonio when I was down there at Fort Hood, and we're going, back to 88, 89. So I really was taken aback, even with Houston. But I was cordially enough invited by Sean Salisbury, and then we ended up hanging around because I wanted to see, obviously, BigSarge and Kalu. And then I got the surprise of my life when BigSarge, and if you guys see the video, it's still up there on Twitter. It's always going to be up there. No one will ever trump that because of this man that's on the other side of the screen right here. He had me come into the studio, and I did an interview with Andy Kalu and with BigSarge. Now, what BigSarge doesn't know, sitting in that broadcaster chair, and then BigSarge is to my left. Andy Kalu is straight in front of me. And BigSarge wanted to record the interview on his phone. As I'm speaking to ND, I know exactly what I'm telling him, but in the back of my mind, I'm like a 4-year-old boy running around and saying, I can't believe the opportunity I got just now. And thanks to my good friend BigSarge for making it happen, because when he told me to come in, I thought, honestly, and Debbie was with me, I really thought you guys were, it was like, all right, come in and hear the show from in here. To be on air and had that opportunity to be on with you guys, I am forever grateful, because it also opened up many doors that I had no idea was going to end up happening. So thanks to you, BigSarge. When you see Andy Kalu, and I still send him messages. I know it takes him a little bit to get back to me only because he's so busy. But thanks to you guys for that opportunity, because it opened up many, many doors.
Hey, man, listen, first of all, thank you for saying that. I will send you the Cash App after this for, thank you for Venmo, whichever you need. But no, you know what? It's one of those things where so a lot of people who are listening, may not know this because, if you run across my page, you just know me from Twitter. So, but I'm really, I'm really what I like to say a good guy. And what I mean by that, you're not supposed to say you're a good guy, but I like to say I'm a good guy because I like to see other people thrive. I'm not a jealous person. I'm not if you got, if you get it, then how you get it before I get it. No, if I can help you get it, then guess what that means? That means that I know somebody who got it. Plus, it wasn't like I was bringing on just an average fan who wanted to spew and rant social media social media stuff on air, who wanted to, sound like they were reading right off a Twitter page or X or whatever they're calling it right now. Like, I brought in a person who really knows the game, a person who really studies the game, a person who is going to come on and give great takes, not just a person that's going to come on and try to troll and try to out-talk anybody. I knew that when I said, hey, Indy, we need to bring him in because I've talked to him, I've talked to him before. And by that, I think I had did 1 or 2 podcasts with you all, and I was like, oh, he knows what he's talking about. Indy was like, well, Dave, tell him to come in, because Indy is one of those guys as well. Like, Indy and I, it's really weird. I never thought in a million lifetimes that I would be friends with a former NFL player. And I mean, we text each other back and forth. Matter of fact, really, really quick story. Last week, because Indy still does things with the Texans, but he's also, he has a real estate company, and his office is actually right around the corner from NRG Stadium.
Oh,
and
wow.
So we're getting ready to cross the street at NRG. So I'm crossing the street, of course, jaywalking. Don't tell nobody that, though. Jaywalking, being 2 of my colleagues, and I see this car speeding up. And so we get past, and the car speeds by. And I looked, and I said, I think that was ND. And then I get a text message about 3 minutes later that say, get your A out the street. And I said, I told y'all that was ND. I told you. So 1 week later, he's leaving from doing some stuff with the Texans, and he comes around the corner, and I see him coming, and I stand right in front of his car. I say, "What, you gonna hit me now?" And he said, "Hey, if all these people went out here, I'd have probably tapped you a little bit." But that's just that's just the thing. Like, we act like we still in high school sometimes. We send each other funny memes. We talk on the phone. We talk about our families, whatever the case may be. But he's really, really a good guy. So for us, at the time, to have you on, man, it was a pleasure to us to be able to talk sports with somebody else outside of each other who gives a different perspective and gave a different perspective. So we really appreciate you coming on that show. Hey, R.I.P. to In the Trenches. Indy decided that he didn't, he wanted more time to spend. Because, Indy has a son that plays Division I football.
Yeah.
And another one that plays high school football, and a nephew who finishes up his senior year, and he's headed to play Division I football as well. So he's gotten really, really, really busy, and he just said, I can't do the radio, and I can't do radio anymore because I got so many other things on my plate.
Yeah, no, and I've been following him. What his son's been doing. I mean, and I had a funny feeling it was going to happen. I do truly miss out on it because it was so much fun when you guys were on. It was so great because it was genuine. Everything that you guys said, the back and forth that you guys used to go. I mean, if for those who missed out, I wish there was an archive where you guys can go back and hear a lot of stuff because it was the fastest 2 hours ever on radio. I will say that much, and it was so much fun listening to you guys. So when
non-scripted too, Angel, non-scripted. Yeah, oh man, sometimes Indy and I would walk in, and we'd be like, "All right, man, what you gonna start off with?" He's like, I'll start it off. Don't worry about it. And then he'll start off a subject, and then we'll just get to talking. And if we disagree about something, then guess what? We naturally disagree about it. It isn't, I'm going to take one side and you take the other. Let me give you a prime example real quick. Last season, I called Jalen Hurts' season last season. And I told him, I said, if this young man can stay healthy, he's going to be a better quarterback than Donovan McNabb was for the Eagles. Him and the other the co-host in there, they thought I was crazy. Then the callers start calling in. They ripped me a new one. Now, this is 1 year prior to because last season was the Super Bowl season, correct?
Yep.
So 1 year prior to the Super Bowl season, I said, he's going to be good. He just needs the talent, and he needs the coaches, which, by the way, man, I did not know the offensive and defensive coordinators for y'all from last season were that good. But now I see what they're doing. I see what they did with the Eagles, and I see what they're doing respectively for in their head coaching positions. And I was like, oh, yeah, these guys were good. And so But I called it. And so last season, as last season was going on, I kept getting these text messages like, man, you might have been right. You might have been right. I didn't say too much. I was like, yeah. And then when they went to the Super Bowl, I said, oh, I know I was right. I told you all. And even, look, I'm going to be honest with you. This season, if Jalen Hurts can stay healthy, they're making another Super Bowl run. And I'm not even, I'm not an Eagles fan like that, but I do watch the NFC East a lot. And I just see, that collapse that the Eagles had at the end, that's unprecedented. And so when Jalen Hurts is still out there trying to give his all, so like I said, as I digress, I called that, and Indy and I had that natural back and forth because he thought I was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I said, it's the same thing I told you when I said that Tony Pollard was going to take over for Ezekiel Elliott, but you didn't believe me, so it was just all natural.
Yeah, and believe me, if anything, I learned the same way with Rich Quinones and myself when we do things. It's the same way. We're not scripted. Well, throughout the day, we'll send a message to each other and talk about what's happening, what's hot, and then when we come on, that's it. It's no, here in the studio, there's no scripts. I mean, we that's the way we run. Tony Bruno the same exact way with Miss Robin, no scripts. I mean, I will say for everyone that's here on the network is because either you're going to know your stuff, and if you don't know, ask. Because if not, if you come out, you tell a false story, oh, buddy, or people are going to call you out on that one. So, I can't thank you guys enough because it was so much fun. I even geeked out, and Debbie's over in Studio B. When we were walking up to where the garage was, and you guys were coming up and you're heading out to the elevator, and I know you guys had stated if you both didn't have something to do that day, we'd have grabbed something to eat.
Oh, for sure.
But I understood, that you guys had other plans as well. When you guys walked away, we got in the rental car. Asked Debbie, I geeked out like no one ever. Because my thing was, it was two guys that I naturally loved that I thought, man, this is to go from just a fan to talk to them, to go tweeting back and forth, and then to have numbers and be able to, because you guys know I don't ever disturb you. I don't disturb ND just with nonsense. It's got to be something good in order for me to be able to reach out to you, or unless it's the holidays or especially during Veterans Day. But to be able to have that opportunity, that moment, I have not forgotten it. Believe me, I don't even think that same Super Bowl championship shirt that I walked in the studio that day hasn't been washed ever since. It's sitting around. So no, it was so much fun. I just wanted to thank you because I know I haven't got the opportunity, but I want to make sure I did it properly on air so everybody knew the reason why that will always be pinned on my Twitter profile because of you. So
I'll definitely relay that message to ND on tomorrow. I might see him. I think he has some things he has to do with NRG. So he'll probably be in the studio over there. So I'll probably see him, but I'll definitely relay that message.
I appreciate it. So the last thing that I would love to talk to you about, because obviously, again, on the outside, we saw the Phillies take on the Astros. Of course, end up losing to the Astros. But, that year, they talked about the cheating and this, that, and the other. And, that's done, gone, whatever. Astros almost made another run this year. Unfortunately, the Rangers had other ideas to be able to take that. But my question to you would be, we know that the legend that is Dusty Baker, right, been chasing that elusive ring year after year after year. Now, I will tell you, just me personally, even if I went up to Dusty Baker to ask him that first question, not only would my voice, when you meet somebody, you get like that little squeak in your voice.
Yes.
Not only would that happen to me, I think I'd have had such a fan, stardom that I would probably just goof up the question. So being a media personality, being a broadcaster, that being said and being put aside, the first time you meet Dusty Baker, what are the feels?
So it's funny you asked me that because the very first time I met, so I of course I met him when he was hired, but there was a lot going on. There was a lot going on during his initial press conference, so I didn't really get a chance to talk with him. And then after everything started going on, I didn't really get a chance to talk to Dusty until, as a matter of fact, I didn't meet Dusty until 1 year after he was already here, because when Dusty got here was, Matter of fact, they had to pause the season for COVID, if I'm not mistaken. That year that they lost to the Tampa Bay Rays in San Diego when they were down 3-1 and they came back and they went to 7 games. I think that was Dusty's first year. Then the next year is when they played. That was Dusty's first year. The next year they played and lost to the Braves in the World Series. Then they beat the Phillies, and then they lost to the Rangers. So his first year, I only got a chance to talk to Dusty Baker through Zoom. So it really wasn't, it was just, I'm talking to a computer screen a lot of times. And even when they were in the playoffs, when they had to go, when they were in that first series, they were at Dodger Stadium against the A's. And even though I was in California, they still, we still couldn't go down to the clubhouse or anything like that. Everything was done by Zoom. And then, like I said, they went to San Diego. That was done by Zoom. So that following year, when I got a chance to meet him when he came back from spring training, I got a chance to meet him right before the season started. And it was one of those things where you're like, he's an icon. He's a legend. He's been around for these special moments. Like, here's the man that was on deck after Hank Aaron hit. I can't remember the number, but after he hit that, he broke the record for the home runs.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a man who started the high five. Like, here's a bona fide Hall of Famer. And first time I met him, he was like, "Hey, what's up, man? How's it going?" I was like, "I'm doing well, Mr. Baker." He said, "Call me Dusty." I said, "I'll call you Dusty then." And from that point on, it was just, Dusty, how can I put this? I can only put this in a way where, a lot of my, how can I put this? So in the African-American community, right, you have these uncles, right? You have these uncles that are like the cool uncles when you go to any family function or when you go to the like a family reunion, Thanksgiving, Christmas, graduation, any family function, the cool uncle always shows up and always got something slick to say, but you always want to be around them because they just so cool and they tell the best stories, right? That's what Dusty Baker was to me. Dusty Baker was the cool uncle because, of course, asking him questions during the media scrum is one thing.
Right.
But then after that's over and for him to tell you stories about Tommy John, like the real Tommy John, because, when we hear Tommy John, we think, oh, Tommy John surgery. No, Dusty Baker knew Tommy John. Dusty Baker knew Hank Aaron. To hear Dusty Baker talk about the story where he was driving from, I think he drove from Atlanta back to California and left his wallet in Texas.
Ooh.
And didn't realize until he got up the road. And so he had to scrape to get himself home. And then the person who found his wallet mailed his wallet to him with everything in it.
Wow.
To hear Dusty talk about his dad did not want him to play baseball in the racist South during that time, and Dusty did anyway, and to have Hank Aaron tell Dusty Baker's dad, "Hey, don't worry about it, I got him." And Dusty said, I had never experienced anything that I experienced like that, but it's one of the things that I had to go through. Dusty ain't really telling the stories like he's telling us a story, telling me the story. It's been many times that me and Dusty be standing on the field before he even goes over to where they're doing batting practice at, and you could swear we're kin to each other by the way we're laughing and talking. And so, that's one of the things that I'm really, and don't get me wrong, I think, Houston hired a great manager in Joe Espada. He is one of he's one of the people that the players love. He's very good at his job and he deserved the opportunity. But man, it's going to be different not having Dusty around, man. That was one of the things that I always look forward to when I went to Minute Maid, or when I went to, when I traveled on the road with the Astros. I knew for a fact that, I was going to get be able to talk to Dusty Baker. And it's crazy because I literally live right across the street from Minute Maid Park. So I go across the street, walk right across the street, make sure I'm there early enough so I can catch Dusty and do the media scrum. And then afterwards, and it wasn't just me that Dusty affected like that. There was a lot of, of my colleagues that Dusty affected like that, it's crazy because the day that he announced that he was leaving the Astros at the press conference, of course I had to take a picture with him, but there were some of my colleagues that shed some tears. I had never seen anything like that before, but there was some that, we have a guy here, James Montgomery, we call him Mr. Baseball. And Mr. Baseball has been around for a very, very, very long time. Like you can ask players like Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., A-Rod. Like you can ask some of the big name players, do they know Mr. Baseball? And they'd be like, oh yeah, of course we know Mr. Baseball. And Mr. Baseball was so emotional when Dusty Baker gave his final press conference that he was shaking. So that's just the effect that, and I didn't mean to get long-winded on you, but I'm gonna miss Dusty, man, because growing up in a single-parent household, I don't want to say that Dusty was like my daddy, but growing up in a single-parent household where you don't really have anybody that male presence that you could talk to and he could tell you about life. At 50 plus years old, that's what Dusty was like to me. Like, just like I said, to listen to the stories that he told and everything and all the adversity that he had been through, man. And then to see those players gravitate towards him and listen to him and say, we trust Dusty. And a lot of times, in this day and age of analytics, in Major League Baseball, a lot of people's like, Dusty didn't listen to the analytics. Dusty didn't listen to the people doing the analytics. Dusty didn't manage by the analytics. No, because he knows more baseball than anybody will. He knows more he's forgotten more baseball than most people will ever know. So he did a lot of coaching with his gut. Sometimes they got him, in trouble. Sometimes it was successful, but that's the chance you take when you have a person like Dusty Baker, who is a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Cooperstown, right? Is that where it is? Cooperstown?
Sure is.
Yeah.
Cooperstown, New York. And it's, it's amazing to me, BigSarge, because again, I mean, you talk about just a natural history icon, what is Dusty Baker. And listen, people can get mad at me all they want to. They got frustrated when I said, you know what? It was due time. Dusty had chased that dream for so many years. And to finally get it, I think you would have to, just like the way you described his history, that's the reason why I was happy, because of how many roads he had to take to finally just be able to see like the end of that road in a good way, to finally say, well, guess what? That detour never happened. Here I am. So I think it was, for a lot of people that it may take them years from now to understand. Once they get over the whole thing when they thought about the cheating, blah, blah, this, that, and the other, I think it's going to be when they see the reason why, when you hear it in history, and as time goes on, people will understand like, wow, Dusty meant that much to the game. And I think the people that really truly follow baseball would understand why people like ourselves were just so extremely happy that they finally got it. So I was excited. I was upset, obviously, because the Phillies should have won the World Series. They didn't. But you know what? Dusty got it. And I think if it had to be against any other team, I'm glad I guess it was against us.
And you know what is so crazy is that, they went out and the owner of the Astros specifically wanted Dusty Baker to come in because Dusty came in right after the cheating scandal broke.
Right.
And so after that following season, they brought Dusty in, and they didn't miss a beat. Dusty came in, he cleared up a couple of things, cleaned up a couple of things. He let the players be themselves. He said, hey, look, this is what we're going to have to endure. We're not going to do it, have to endure it this season because of COVID, but that following season, there are going to be a lot of people who hate us and going to boo us. And it was Dusty who was like at the forefront of it. And he was like, hey, boo me. You can boo me first. And so, yeah, man, he was built for the Astros for the last 4 seasons.
There he was. He's going to be missed, that's for sure.
Sure.
I know. As a fan, I miss them. So it's just, it's different. It's a whole different nucleus. You have to be a baseball fanatic in order to kind of understand a lot of stuff. But listen, Big Sarge, thank you so much, not only for being a friend for the past 4 years, but for what you do with your coverage between the Rockets, the Astros, and the Texans. I mean, I'm glad that you and your wife are able to take some time away every once in a while. I know it's a little window, but I'm glad you guys take that time. And by the way, congratulations to you on the nuptials, because it seems just like yesterday when you guys got married.
For sure. Yeah, it seems like a lifetime. Wait a minute, can she hear me? Probably. I just messing with her, but yeah, man, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, no problem. So thanks to everyone who tuned in for the bonus time here. Martinez Company on the Tony Bruno Sports Network. Don't forget, starting tomorrow morning, it is Pete Shepard from 7 to 10 a.m., followed by Defo and Luby from 10 to 12. Then the short condensed best of between 12 and 1 p.m. Then from 1 to 3, the newest show on the Tony Bruno Sports Network. That is LFG with Dave Benz, Jim Cosymore, Matt Flower, and then, of course, with Jess Taylor. Then the legend himself from 3 to 6 p.m., Tony Bruno and Miss Robin on the Tony Bruno Show. Myself, Rich Quinones, Martinez Company from 6 to 8 p.m. And then AJ Johnson and the Bleacher Brothers. They end the night as they are right now from 8 to 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday. The rest of the shows are all Monday through Friday. So tune in tomorrow. We do appreciate everyone who listened in to bonus time and those who listen over on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Have yourselves a great evening. And as we always say, do not drink and drive, arrive alive, and don't text and drive. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.